forward.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden, resigns just hours after the Tories lose 2 by-elections.
Yes, it's all happening this morning, and a very good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 24th of June. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, on your radio, online. Wherever you are, you can take us with you to keep abreast of everything that's going on today. These are the headlines.
Oliver Dowden says he shares the distress of Conservative voters over recent events.
Well, meanwhile, those by-election results saw a historic win for the Lib Dems in Tiverton and Honiton overnight.
And in a second defeat of the night for the Tories, Labour reclaimed the Redwall seat of Wakefield.
In other news for you today, we're on your doorstep, and our East of England reporter Ed Crawford is in Bury St Edmunds. Could it be knocking on your door today?
And it hasn't happened for 2 years, but today Glastonbury returns. The festival will see the likes of Paul McCartney, Diana Ross and the Pet Shop Boys down in Somerset. And our very own Stephanie Tecci is there.
Yes, here I am amongst a sea full of tents, and here this weekend over 100,000 music lovers are here for the greatest show on earth. The rail strikes haven't dampened people's spirits, the poor weather hasn't dampened people's spirits, because people are here to party. Finally, after 3 years, everyone is back at Worthy Farm.
As ever, you can join in any of our discussions. We need a smile from Stephanie.
She's in her element, isn't she?
She is, because, I mean, there's so much going on today. You may be happy with what's happening in terms of 2 by-election defeats for the Conservative Party, the resignation of the Conservative Party chairman, or perhaps you're furious. GB Views at gbnews.uk. For whatever your views are this morning, we're going to reflect them.
First of all, though, that breaking news this morning, Oliver Dowden has resigned as chairman of the Conservative Party after, of course, it suffered 2 by-election defeats. And that's all happened in the last couple of hours. In his resignation letter to the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, he said, someone must take responsibility.
Well, let's talk to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who's on the line with the very latest. Morning to you, Tom. Look, in this letter, Oliver Dowden says he shares the distress of Conservative voters over recent events. Is that a sort of very thinly veiled message?
Well, it is interesting looking at the words of the former chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden, because he doesn't explicitly criticise the Prime Minister, but does explicitly say that things need to change, emphasising the very poor results, not just today, but also saying it's the latest in a run of very poor results, referencing, of course, the over 500 council seats that were lost at the local elections. I think one of the most significant points about this resignation is that it emphasises that this is not necessarily all priced in. What a lot of people were thinking about these particular by-elections is that the Conservatives might well lose them, but this was expected, that the Conservative Party was expecting to lose these by-elections, not only because of the local circumstances for which they were held, of course, two Conservative MPs resigning in relative forms of disgrace, but also, of course, because of the national circumstances that have led to this point, and indeed the fact that it is mid-term. But I think the scale of the swings, particularly in Tiverton, a 30% swing, quite extraordinary numbers against the Conservative Party, a slightly lower swing in Wakefield, 17% against the Conservative Party. These are numbers that it seems that the former chairman of the Tory party simply couldn't stand by. And to that extent of resignation, it's going to be incredibly interesting to see as the morning develops what goes beyond this resignation, how quickly Number 10 responds to this resignation, and to what extent changes will happen within Number 10. Of course, the Prime Minister is thousands of miles away in Rwanda this morning, and the speed at which he will be able to respond to this will be hampered. On the other hand, MPs are back in constituencies mainly. It doesn't seem like this is going to be a great day of drama in Westminster, but it does set up a potential pitfall for the Prime Minister, who will be hoping that no one follows Oliver Dowden out of the Cabinet, that there are no further ministerial resignations, which is something that at this stage cannot be guaranteed.
Yes, I was going to ask the next thing about whether it would start a domino effect. I mean, will it embolden other, maybe even members of Cabinet, but will it embolden others? And there's another co-chair, of course, as well. So will we see more today, this morning, do you think?
Yes, so the other co-chair is a more functional role. For the last 5 or 6 years, the Conservative Party has had an almost organisational co-chair and a political co-chair, and the organisational one is more to do with sort of how the functions of the party are run, whereas the co-chair who is the member of Parliament who sits in Cabinet is the more political side of that. I think it's unlikely that we'll see the sort of functional side of the chairmanship of the Conservative Party resign, but the real moment of danger for the Prime Minister, and no doubt there will be a big ring-round operation this morning to shore up support, is that this domino effect does not begin, because that has been what has one of the things that has helped the Prime Minister in all of his scrapes up until now, that he's had relative support from the Cabinet. Of course, if we look back to previous Prime Ministers, what has brought them down is Cabinet losing support in their Prime Minister. So this is a real moment of danger for the Prime Minister here, and he will be very, very wary of other potential resignations. And indeed, there's a line here that is interesting to watch, because no potential challenger to the Prime Minister wants to be the person who is seen to bring down the premiership of this Prime Minister. So if there's someone who's looking to be a future leader and that sort of fancies leadership contest, they would not necessarily be the ones who want to resign. They'd be looking for others to do so. Now, Oliver Dowden has never been seen as a potential future leader of the Conservative Party, and indeed as chairman of the Conservative Party, he has taken on the role of managing these by-elections, managing the local election results. And so to that extent, he is responsible in an organisational capacity for these results. So if anyone was to resign from Cabinet, it would be Oliver Dowden, although I don't think many people in Westminster expected a resignation like this to come so soon.
I mean, it's an interesting point. He finishes off his letter to the Prime Minister by saying this is a deeply personal decision which I have taken alone. There's going to be a lot of people who doubt that. A lot of people are going to think, this has been certainly in discussion with others and perhaps with potential future leaders. This has got to be something which has been planned a little bit, hasn't it? On the basis that they knew they pretty much were guaranteed to lose both of these by-elections.
The speed at which this letter has come out showed that Oliver Dowden probably made his mind up about this a little while ago, that if both of these by-elections were lost by a considerable margin, then he would walk. And this letter seems to have been planned to that effect. But I suppose the interesting point here is indeed the wording of this letter. It's emphasising that business cannot carry on as usual, that further changes need to happen. And these are words that other people in and around the Cabinet have been saying. The previous Cabinet resignation, of course, came just before Christmas, and that was Lord Frost, who resigned as Brexit minister, saying that changes need to happen. And indeed, Lord Frost, only a couple of weeks ago, said the Prime Minister really has until October, until the Conservative Party conference, to ensure that changes are made and that the Conservative Party can get back on the road to governing in a competent manner. Now, whether or not that timescale has now narrowed because of Oliver Dowden's actions this morning remains to be seen. But it does seem that there is this message really from those who have left Cabinet in recent months, emphasising that there does need to be changes. Changes not just within the organisational structure of Number 10, but potentially within policy as well.
We'll have to leave it there, but I know we're going to be revisiting you several times in the programme, so thanks very much indeed for the moment. If you've just woken up and joined us, it's 10 minutes past 6, and already there's an awful lot of news and breaking news happening. Two absolutely appalling results for the Tories in those by-elections overnight, and then suddenly, in the last half hour, at least it was a surprise to us, the surprise resignation of the Conservative co-chair, Oliver Dowden. That's going to send a rocket through Downing Street. It is.
I mean, there's got to be lots of people saying, is this a nail in the coffin of the Prime Minister? Because it's this sort of thing which will have an effect on confidence in that. They've had the vote of confidence. He won that. But nevertheless, if the Cabinet loses confidence in the Prime Minister, it could just force him out. We shall see. More analysis on that. But, of course, this has been, in effect, triggered by the results in two crucial by-elections, which are seen as a key measure in how the government and the Prime Minister is doing.
Firstly, a historic win for the Lib Dems in Tiverton and Honiton, where a dramatic swing of almost 30% from the Tories saw the Lib Dems' Richard Ford secure a majority of 6,144. Now, that's a seat that has been held by the Tories since it was created 25 years ago.
Well, meanwhile, in Wakefield, Labour have reclaimed this Red Wall constituency. Simon Lightwood elected with a majority of 4,925, a swing of 12.7% from the Tories, so still significant.
So in a moment, we will cross live to our reporter in Wakefield. But first, to Tiverton and Honiton, and Jeff Moody is there for us now. Very good morning, Jeff. My goodness, a dramatic story there.
Absolutely dramatic story. I mean, it's a very sleepy mid-Devon town here. There's not many people about at this time of the morning, but it has sent seismic shockwaves through to Westminster. Unbelievable shockwaves. And we're going to be hearing a lot of hyperbole like that over the next day, because simply this is unprecedented. There's another one. We've never seen anything quite on this scale before. This bad a defeat for the Conservatives, as dramatic a gain for the Liberal Democrats. The numbers are truly staggering. As you said, Anne, since 1997, this seat has been held by the Conservatives, but actually it's been held by them for a lot longer, because in 1997, this constituency was created because of various boundaries moving. It's actually been in Conservative hands since the 1920s. So the expression dyed-in-the-wool Conservative could almost have been invented for this very seat. The numbers are incredible. 24,000 majority the Conservatives had as of yesterday. That's been wiped out overnight, giving us a 6,000 majority to the Liberal Democrats. That scale has never been seen before either. There simply has never been in this country a by-election where a swing of 30% like this has been achieved. Turnout was huge too, 52.3%. That's respectable for a general election, not just a by-election. Was this expected? Well, yes, it was. It was expected that that the Liberal Democrats would certainly give the Tories a run for their money. I don't think even Richard Ford, the Liberal Democrat candidate, knew quite how dramatic that would be, how dramatic that switch would be from one to the other. You get a sense when you report on by-elections, and I know both Anne and Stephen, you've both reported on plenty of by-elections over the years, and when you do, when you first swing into town, you get a sense, don't you, of how it's going. And when I first arrived here on Monday, I did have a very, very strong sense. You looked around you and there were Liberal Democrat stickers everywhere. So many people had a Liberal Democrat badge on. People were walking around distributing flyers. The sense of the Liberal Democrats was everywhere, partly because they bussed an awful lot of people in to make sure that they were fighting as good a campaign as they possibly can. But I searched high and low for Conservative posters and also for Labour posters. I managed to find a few Conservative, and I found one Labour poster, but it was the Liberal Democrats that really had the upper hand here from the very beginning. But as I say, Sir Ed Davey has said that the Liberal Democrats have made historic political history with this stunning view. Absolutely. But we must, but why has it happened, of course, is the big question we're going to be answering. And I think, yes, we can look, obviously, to Boris Johnson, we can look at Partygate. And, when I was talking to people on the streets here, they were saying, that they were still disgusted about what happened. They were still saying, look, I couldn't see my loved ones when they died and the Prime Minister was partying. That hasn't gone away. Although for some people, it had been watered down. Some people are saying, look, we're tired with Partygate, let's just move on. The Conservatives are the right choice. But there was enough people that were still angry. I think also the resignation of Neil Parish and the murky way that he went, watching pornography in the House of Commons, it doesn't sit very well with a very sort of, middle class, true blue area like this. It's not a good look. The optics aren't right. So I think that helped the Liberal Democrats as well. But also, we've got to acknowledge Richard Ford himself. He played a blinder of a campaign. He knocked on so many doors. He's a local man. He's a former army major, so he really knew his stuff and he really knew his people. And I met him on Monday, and I have to say he was very personable. He immediately knew my name. He used my name a lot when he spoke to me. He's instantly likeable, and I think that played very well. The emphasis, of course, now will shift away from Mid-Devon back to Westminster as we look at the fallout. Of course, huge fallout already this morning. No reaction as yet from the Prime Minister, but he did say yesterday, look, governments always lose by-elections. Well, they do. Ruling parties rarely win a by-election, but they also, most significantly, rarely lose a by-election as badly as they've lost this one.
OK, Jeff, thanks very much indeed. It looks absolutely lovely there. We'll come back to you a bit later on in the morning.
We will. Well, another by-election defeat was in Wakefield. Anna Riley is there for us this morning. And this is a red wall seat, Anna. This Labour victory was expected, but, I mean, it's it's still a huge blow for the Conservative Party and still a pretty big swing.
Good morning. Yes, it certainly is. Conservatives got this seat in 2019, and that was the first time in 80 years. Before that, it had been Labour, and it's gone back to Labour now. Like you say, it was expected. That's what the polls were saying, but still a real blow for the Conservatives. Now, the winning candidate for Labour is NHS worker Simon Lightwood. He's now going to represent this constituency in the Commons. There was a turnout of the vote of 39.1%. The Conservatives came in second place. That was followed by the Independent and in third, and the Yorkshire Party in fourth. Greens were fifth, Reform sixth, and the Lib Dems pushed into sixth place here. And there were 15 candidates in total that were vying for this seat. Speaking after the result, the winner, Mr. Lightwood, addressed the Prime Minister. He said, "Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated. Your government has no ideas, no plan to address the big issues facing our country." He also said on winning that he feels absolutely over the moon and that his party focused on the cost of living. He said people wanted a fresh start for Wakefield, and he said we will be rebuilding the Red Wall going forward, and Labour is pushing forward. And again, he mentioned the big things that he believed were the cost of living and that people being really angry with the Prime Minister and turning to Labour. And we'll be bringing you all the updates in Wakefield throughout the day as we have them.
O'Reilly, thank you. It is 19 minutes past 6. Let's just bring you up to date then with the headlines. And if you just joined us, the chairman of the Conservative Party has resigned after the Tories suffered 2 by-election defeats.
Yes, he wrote an open letter to the Prime Minister, just released it half an hour ago, and he said yesterday's parliamentary by-elections are the latest in a run of very poor results for our party. We cannot carry on with business as usual. Somebody must take responsibility, and I have concluded that in these circumstances it would not be right for me to remain in office.
Well, the Lib Dems overturned a 24,000 Tory majority to win Tiverton and Honiton. Labour reclaimed the Red Wall Wakefield seat in West Yorkshire. Labour's Simon Lightwood used his acceptance speech to call for Boris Johnson to resign.
Tonight, the people of Wakefield have spoken on behalf of the British people. They have said unreservedly, Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated. Your government has no ideas, no plan to address the big issues facing our country. It's not acceptable.
And in more news, train services continue to be disrupted as a dispute over jobs, pay and conditions continues. More unions say they plan to ballot staff next week, making further strike action likely in the summer. Meanwhile, the RMT plans to go ahead with a third strike tomorrow as its members demand a pay rise in line with inflation.
Downing Street says British Airways should draw up contingency plans to minimise strike disruption at airports this summer. The company says it's extremely disappointed that workers at Heathrow, including check-in staff, have voted in favour of industrial action in a dispute over pay.
Now, the heads of government from Commonwealth countries are set to meet in Rwanda later today and over the course of the weekend.
The Prime Minister and Prince Charles will join other Commonwealth leaders to tackle challenges from climate change, food security and the crisis triggered by Ukraine.
However, the impending meeting has been somewhat overshadowed by the Prime Minister's plans to send illegal migrants to Rwanda, with papers suggesting that Prince Charles has also already described that policy as appalling.
Well, Sunil Sharma from the Conservative Friends of the Commonwealth joins us in the studio this morning. Good to see you. Look, as if today wasn't going to be problematic enough for the Prime Minister seeing Prince Charles, knowing what his views are on all of this. Now he's got 2 by-election defeats and a major resignation to cope with. Not a good day for the PM.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a testing sort of period. I think it was in some ways disappointing to see Prince Charles make these alleged comments in terms of saying it's appalling. It's not something that we've generally seen from the Queen and the future king that's going to be Prince Charles. So I think that was a disappointing thing to see. And hopefully over the course of yesterday they spoke, and hopefully they were able to sort of make some leeway. I know they said they wouldn't talk about the legal immigrant situation, but I think it's important in some ways for Boris Johnson, even more so with what's happened this morning, that he's seen on the world stage, that he's seen having a massive impact. And maybe this summit, maybe this what's going on in Rwanda would be a good example of that.
I mean, Boris Johnson has made one comment about the Prince Charles comments. He said that he hopes Prince Charles has an open mind about how Rwanda has changed. Nevertheless, they can't really present a united front in a very important Commonwealth meeting, can they? And the subject of illegal migration and the Rwanda plan, as it's being called, is bound to come up from other leaders.
For sure. I think, you know, he's obviously not going to be at Kigali, and it's going to be other ministers. I think that's it. In some ways, it's overshadowing what we should be talking about, which is the Commonwealth, about these 54 nations coming together. I think Rwanda is a fantastic example of a country that didn't even belong to the British Empire that decided to join the Commonwealth. It's a shame that that's not going to be what we're talking about, and how these countries can work closer together. We've seen the Foreign Secretary and Liz Truss talk about the cybersecurity stuff that she wants to do with these nations and help them. She's pledged, I think, £15 million. These are the sort of things that I'm sure he would have wanted to talk about, displaying that strength as countries united. So it is disappointing that that's not going to be the main focus of it. I'm hoping to see some more strong words from the other ministers, and I think it's also disappointing we're not seeing the heads of states from Australia, New Zealand, India, Pakistan. So it'd be nice to have seen that front. That said, with what's happened, I think the last meeting they had was in 2018, so it's good to see some progress being made. But yeah,
I've got to ask you, with the resignation of Oliver Dowden, do you think this is the beginning of the end for the Prime Minister?
I did not expect, I think, Oliver Dowden to resign so swiftly. For sure, I think that it's a very testing period for him. I think the migrants, the situation of sending illegal immigrants back, I think generally people are in favour of that. I think he's got a really testing period up until party conference in October. I think these next few months are going to be difficult, and I really think that what's happening now in Rwanda and what this summit is, it's a really good opportunity for him to display that world stage. We saw him in India, and it saw the positive bounce back of him showing across a prime minister in a foreign country, signifying that strength. In Ukraine, we saw it similar. Maybe this will be similar, but I do think it's a very testing period for him.
OK. Sunil Sharma, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Do stay with us. There's so much news today. Obviously, we were talking politics about those two by-elections, the resignation of the Conservative Party chairman, Oliver Dowden. And in a few moments, we'll also be looking at the fact that polio is back in the UK.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. It's going to start to turn more unsettled over the next 24 hours or so. There will be some sunshine, but some hefty showers too, and it will start to turn fresher, particularly in the west. And the reason for this is low pressure is going to start dominating our weather pattern. Blustery showers, fresher conditions starting to move in time for the weekend. So Friday morning, quite a cloudy start across much of the UK, 1 or 2 showers as well. Best of the sunshine will be across eastern parts of England, central, southern and eastern Scotland too. But by the afternoon, the heat and humidity here will spark a few hefty showers, some thunderstorms possible. A lot of the UK will be cloudy, there'll be a few bright or sunny spells. And then into the afternoon across Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, southwest England, a band of rain, which could be heavy at times, will move in here. And turning fresher as a result, 20 or 21 Celsius. In the east, holding on to the heat and humidity, highs of 25 or 26. Through the evening, thunderstorms move away. Then this band of rain pushes north and east across the UK. Behind it, fresher conditions following, mixture of clear skies and scattered showers. So a much more comfortable night for sleeping Friday night into Saturday morning. Towns and cities holding up in double figures, but slipping into single figures in the countryside. So a bright start to Saturday morning, but there will be a mixture of showers, some of these heavy. Showers most frequent across western areas through the day. The east holding on to the driest and brightest weather, but there will be some showers here too. Perhaps some longer spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland later on in the day. And also with this low pressure nearby, we will see increasing winds, particularly through the Irish Sea, some gales developing towards Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. And a fresher feeling day for all. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, perhaps 23 to 25 across southeast England. And that remains so for the weekend. We're looking at a mixture of sunny spells and showers, some of these heavy at times, and temperatures overall around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
At 6:29 morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne, and we've got some breaking news this morning. If you've just joined us, Oliver Dowden has resigned as chairman of the Conservative Party. That's just in the couple of hours after it suffered 2 by-election defeats, significant swings against the party in both of those seats, Wakefield and Tiverton and Honiton. Oliver Dowden said in a letter to the Prime Minister that somebody must take responsibility for what has happened, but also crucially, and I want to explore this further throughout the course of the morning, he said, our supporters are distressed and disappointed by recent events, and I share their feelings.
So he's not resigning, is he, because, or I mean, it might be partly, but he's saying he's not resigning because of those appalling by-election results that have just happened in the last 2 hours, but because of recent events.
Yes. Now, read into that what you will.
It's straw that broke the camel's back.
Could be. And it makes you wonder, as we've been saying so far this morning, could this be the first resignation of several, which could then undermine the Prime Minister?
Yes. You can sense that a lot of Tory MPs and particularly cabinet ministers might be waking up, or they've probably been awake all night, scratching their heads, thinking, is this the time for me to join in? Because certainly his resignation will embolden them to maybe think they could actually force him to resign.
Well, you do sort of think these things happen with a bit of consultation, though he denies that in the letter. He says he's acting absolutely alone.
But he would, wouldn't he?
But you need someone to go first. And once one person has gone, others tend to follow. So we watch with bated breath to see what's going to happen throughout the course of the day today.
It's all happening, so do let us know what your views are on it. Do you think it really is time now that Boris went and we'd be better off with somebody else? Let me know. Let us know.
I was going to say.
Yeah, let me know. What am I saying? Anyway, GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Now,
meanwhile, there's some even more very worrying news, really.
Yeah, for the first time in nearly 40 years, health officials in the UK have identified a likely outbreak of polio.
Now, so far, there have been no cases of polio detected directly, and experts do believe the risk to the general public is extremely low.
Yeah, but scientists have found multiple versions of the virus in sewage. So, to tell us what this means, we're joined by Dr. Amos Ogunkoya. Good to see you once again, Doctor.
Hi.
Look, I mean, they've found this in sewage, but no actual sort of ongoing cases.
Can you explain why that would be?
OK, so I think it's really good that the public is more aware of this. So they test sewage all the time because that's how you kind of track a lot of viruses. And what this has shown is that earlier this year, they found and isolated the polio virus. And they found it again recently. And there's mutations in it which are related to the one they found earlier this year, which means that there's a chance there has been some human-to-human transmission and mutation in order for that to happen. And that's the concern, really, because polio, like a lot of viruses, produces symptoms which are non-specific. So for doctors, you might come in with an upset stomach or sniffles, and we might think it's something else. Only in very rare cases, probably less than 1%, does it develop into something that causes like muscle weakness and paralysis.
I was going to say, because as far as GPs are concerned, actually polio isn't going to be on your radar, is it, at the moment?
That's one of the reasons why getting the news out there is important, because even we have getting professional updates all the time. So we have to be across all the new, like with COVID, with the variants and what they might look like. But with polio, especially for the younger doctors, we haven't come across it. It was eradicated in 2003. And
probably well before then as well.
Yeah,
actually.
well before then. And it's almost the vaccine has been a victim of its own success because there's a generation of doctors who haven't seen it. So it's more making us aware, but also making the public aware that if they're not fully vaccinated, they need to get in contact with their GP.
Yeah, and how do you find out? There'll be a lot of people who went, was I vaccinated against polio? I suppose you start, first of all, with your GP and they'll be able to go through your health records.
More than 90% of the general population have been vaccinated. What I don't want to do is start a panic. I think the focus is in 6 boroughs in London because the Beckton sewage plant kind of drains from those areas.
Yes, I heard that they can almost narrow it down to several streets.
Yeah, it can be that accurate.
Because that's how they test it.
It's likely probably from one family or one community that's passing through each other. But they're going to focus on the under 5s because they're the ones that might not get the full immunity and they're at risk from getting it.
So what will they do? Try and emphasise the need for a vaccine?
Yeah, emphasise because unfortunately the hangover from COVID that because a lot of people get their vaccine before they start school, so the preschool vaccine, and then they get another booster in year 9 or year 10, 14, 15. And if the schools were shut, a lot of young teenagers didn't get that booster. So it's really much catching up the backlog, but making them aware, and then in this community, they need to really push the drive for that to happen.
It's interesting because we were saying earlier on, I mean, you remember people at school. I remember certainly when I was a child, young adults, a lot of people who wore the sort of the big shoes and the calipers and all that sort of thing, which is polio related, which you just don't see now.
Yeah, iron lung, all of these stories that people heard about. It's almost a level of complacency from both the public and doctors, whereas we've moved past those days.
Yeah, I mean, it was common. I remember going to school and there was always one kid in nearly every year of school who had a caliper or had been affected by polio in some way.
Yeah, and like I said, it's almost the complacency is because of the vaccine being successful. Yeah. And what we need to do is encourage people to get those childhood vaccinations because what we don't want is that trend that was happening during COVID to continue. So we have that herd immunity and we have less people. And the reason why we're not worried about an outbreak at the moment is because vaccination levels are extremely high still.
Right, so we need to make sure they stay that way. Dr. Amos, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, amazing. I remember, I don't know about anyone watching at the moment, I remember my mother saying that it was one of the great fears of being a parent in the 50s and 60s was polio. You were terrified of your kid getting polio.
Yeah, I remember having the sugar cube or whatever.
I remember having the sort of the ring of 6 injection in your arm, and I think you had that at school. And your arm ached for days and days. And then, yes, you had the booster with the sugar cube. And something else went under the tongue. And I mean, honestly, and I remember, again, my mum saying how wonderful it was, A, the National Health Service coming along, and B, this idea of vaccinations for children to stop those horrible childhood diseases that could get worse and worse. And they really did work.
Yeah. Make sure we keep on top of it. I think that's the message. Look, we've got plenty more to come for you, including the government says that it's on target to recruit 20,000 new police officers. Is that going to be enough? More in a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
.39 morning, loads of you getting in touch already this morning, particularly on Oliver Dowden's resignation and the by-elections. Tracy says, I think it's more the rats leaving the sinking ship rather than feeling the elector's pain, which is what Oliver Dowden said in his letter.
Yeah, Kenny says this was always going to happen, so don't believe the Labour followers who will say that this is a bombshell result, because without doubt, Tiverton will come back to the Tories at the general election. Wakefield they can have. Ooh, Kenny.
Harsh, that's a bit harsh. Rachel from London says, I'm devastated and very concerned for who's going to run this country. For all of Boris's faults, deep down there was a sense of security about his leadership in keeping us safe. The rats seem to be running from the sinking ship.
Ooh, really? Did you have a sense of security in his leadership? Sue says, very convenient that Boris is in Rwanda. Boris needs to sort this illegal immigrants problem, yes, but we need the cost of living crisis to be top of the list. We are going to have more strikes, more unrest. People have had enough.
And Karen Wilkinson says, if I was voting for a new MP in either of these elections, I'd be thinking about why the others left. Because, of course, they both left in, well, one in a bit of a scandal and the other one is now in prison. It's not the Prime Minister that has lost. It's saying how disgruntled they were with the last MPs. I knew we wouldn't win these seats. Well, keep your thoughts coming through. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So let's take a look at today's front pages, which are frankly a bit behind the times. The Mail is reporting, of course, on the Rwanda story, saying Boris has urged critics to keep an open mind on the policy ahead of his meeting with his critic, Prince Charles.
The Express has an exclusive on a Strasbourg judge that has criticised the secrecy with which the European Court of Human Rights conducted itself over the Rwanda migrant flight ruling.
The Guardian reports that airport staff are set to vote on strike action as the result of disruption to life in the UK widens.
The drive for green fuel is to be relaxed as the PM pushes to cut land used for biofuel. That's all a bit confusing. The story in the Telegraph says it could affect our net zero pledges.
And The Sun says the Queen is back in the saddle. She is riding again, a year after being told to quit despite her recent mobility issues, though the picture on the front page of The Sun showing the Queen on horseback is a library picture. It's not actually a picture of her back in the saddle, though it is sources inside Windsor Castle who say she is riding again.
Right. Well, you might spot her if you're in Windsor Great Park or something. You have to see. Let's go through the papers now. Joining us this morning, editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater, and author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson. Good to see you both this morning. Tom, let's start with the Mail, should we? And the Rwanda issue and the PM and Prince Charles.
Yes, so whilst those by-election bombshells are going off here 4,000 miles away, Boris Johnson's in Rwanda with Prince Charles, and more discussion of the tension between those two men, between the future head of state and our current Prime Minister, over the question of the Rwanda policy. We already know, excuse me, that Prince Charles has privately expressed concerns about the policy, calling it appalling, according to one Time story a couple of weeks ago, and concerns from his side that this would effectively overshadow this Commonwealth summit, which was already pre-planned and was planned before the announcement of the policy itself. Boris Johnson here reportedly not wanting to be seen to be rebuking Charles, but nevertheless that's how it's been written up, saying that critics of the policy should keep an open mind. And I think just so much of this sort of lays the track, I think, for what could be coming insofar as, unlike the Queen, who has very managed to kind of stay out of politics whatsoever, Charles has, whether it's entirely of his own fault in this case, has found himself to be more politicised. His views do manage to get out there in the public, even when he hasn't made a direct intervention in himself. So I think this is potentially something that we could see more of, given the fact that we know so much about what Prince Charles thinks about the world.
Interesting, isn't it?
Going to be a very awkward cup of tea they have together, apparently, before they meet the other Commonwealth leaders.
Talking of the Queen, Nikki, in The Sun, this horse riding story is fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, heck, any 96-year-old getting on a horse is quite something. I mean, she's got her mobility issues. It's interesting that she feels that she wants to get back on the saddle.
Well, I think what we know about the Queen is she absolutely loves her horses, doesn't she? I mean, she's ridden since she was a little girl. So I can imagine that it's such a precious activity for her. Why would she want to give it up, I suppose? And maybe it's a positive sign, actually, because there's been so much discussion about her health problems and, you know, people worrying about just how well she is, given the sort of things she's been cancelling recently. So maybe it is actually a sign that she is feeling better. And so, yeah, it's got to be a positive thing. But, I mean, I'm terrified of horses, so I just think it's amazing that she can get on one at all.
She's lived her whole life on horses.
She has,
And you can imagine, I mean, we don't know what her mobility issues are, but once she's on the horse, she might well feel really comfortable.
And maybe it's better for her, because if she's, you know, riding, at least she's kind of moving. So maybe actually it's more beneficial for her than not.
She'll be happy. Tom, tell us about Wet Wipe Island. I can't believe this.
Yeah, this is it's probably a bit early for this story, but so this is a discovery that essentially there are there's something called Wet Wipe Island, the size of 2 tennis courts in the Thames, which is basically formed of all of those wet wipes that people have flushed down the toilet, and obviously people are always urged not to do so. Apparently, it also makes up a large percentage of what they call fatbergs, which, again, is a slightly unpleasant thing to talk about this hour, insofar as blocking many of the pipes and sewerage.
So there it is in the Thames, and it's nothing but wet wipes all clinging together. And
essentially, it's near Hammersmith and it's near Hammersmith Bridge, and apparently it actually slightly changes the course of the Thames. As a source near has talked about, you can actually stand on it. So this being part of a kind of discussion as to why people shouldn't flush these things down the toilet because of the fact that they do collect. Well, that would be a job, wouldn't it?
Does it stay put, or does it float?
From what I can tell here, and it's just a small story, I'm not as much of an expert on Wet Wipe Island as I might like, it's the fact that it is kind of static, it is kind of stuck there, and it's actually changing the course of the Thames as a result. So again, a lot of that kind of ongoing discussion about these things, disposable sort of materials and all the rest of it that we use each day, can actually have an impact.
That would affect the boat race, wouldn't it?
Affect everything.
Wow.
Do they have to navigate around Wet Wipe Island?
Yeah, they do.
Well, it's interesting
like a
that
slalom or something.
Yeah, nearly all wet wipes now say they're biodegradable. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it's the kind of thing that's used in marketing because people do still use.
But if they are biodegradable, I think that it takes like 1,000 years.
So therefore, it's not any.
Every plumber you will ever meet says do not flush these things. Even the ones that say we are flushable, do not flush them because they lock up your loos and everything else.
There are only 3 Ps that should be flushed. Poo, pee and paper.
Oh, right. Yes. Thank you. Well, on that
They say.
look, I'm saying it's a bit brief this morning because we've been chit-chatting about resignations
Of
so
course.
far, but we'll catch up with you two a little bit later on. Tom and Nikki, thank you.
Meanwhile, the policing minister has exclusively told GB News he's very confident the government will meet its target of 20,000 new police officers across England and Wales by next March.
Yeah, Kit Malthouse was speaking on a visit to the Suffolk Constabulary, which has recruited more than 100 new officers over recent months.
And despite some high-profile policing scandals recently, the minister told our Home and Security editor Mark White that the vast majority of the public still trust the police and many would be happy to have a career in the service.
Silver BMW X3, showing insurance not held. Confirmed insurance not held.
On patrol with a team from Suffolk Constabulary Sentinel Unit in Ipswich Town Centre. They're tasked with combating drug crime. As they patrol, they're pulled over by a member of the public.
Just saw two lads in there exchanging something.
As they turn the vehicle, one of the two young men runs off. Another is grabbed on his bike.
I didn't see anything, man.
Yeah, OK. No? All right, OK.
With both eventually detained, officers find a bag of cannabis and arrest one of the men for dealing.
That is 120 quid's worth of cannabis right there.
These units are being assisted by the recruitment of dozens of new officers across the force. On foot patrol in Ipswich, two of Suffolk's recent recruits.
Hiya, you all right?
Hannah Barrell and Megan Groom joined the force just over a year ago, part of the uplift of thousands of new officers across England and Wales. Hannah told us it's certainly a challenging job, but says it's absolutely the right move for her.
You're the one running to the danger, not away from it. So you do have to have a bit of a backbone in that sense. But you know you want to better your community and you want to help those vulnerable people that you might be going to.
Megan joined the force after studying criminology.
It's a tough job, physically and emotionally. Sometimes you do see some hard things that you sort of have to try and detach yourselves from. But I say to people, you don't, like myself, you don't know until you try.
So much going on!
Can you just try and take a deep breath?
At police headquarters, the latest recruits are being put through challenging scenarios, watched over by the policing minister.
Wait, yeah, listen up, listen up. That car is sound out. Oh, sorry, you're under arrest. For what?
Although the police service has been hit by several recent scandals, Kit Malthouse believes the vast majority of the public still have confidence in the police, and many would be happy to make it their career.
We cannot take that trust for granted, and police leadership from top to bottom realise that you have to constantly reinforce those bonds of trust. So these extra 20,000 police officers that we're recruiting, making sure that a good proportion of them are out on the streets in uniform, building that bond every day. That's all part of the mix as well, and we cannot take that trust for granted. I know every police officer understands that.
These training scenarios are vital in preparing new recruits for what they might face out on the streets. Policing leaders say that those who opt for a career on the front line protecting the public, well, for them, this is a job like no other. The government has now added 13,500 new officers to police ranks across England and Wales. With a new recruitment drive launched this week, the policing minister says he's very confident they'll meet their overall target of 20,000 new officers by next March. Mark White, GB News, Ipswich.
Well, that's interesting, because if that's absolutely true, which I'm sure it is, why can't other people recruit that fast?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, airports and airlines and all of those places that they need to be recruiting fast. Why can't they do it?
Yeah, we've got something that needs to be sorted out pretty quickly too, with all of these things. Though Simon Calder is telling us airports are going to be fine by the summer.
Yes, you're clinging on to that, aren't you? Because you're going away.
Some flights booked, yeah.
No,
So-
I've actually delayed a holiday because I just can't face airport chaos. I just can't.
No, not at the
It
minute.
would spoil it.
Yeah. Anyway, look, each week here at GB News, as you know, we like to get out and about and speak to the good people of Britain to find out what really matters to you.
Well, today, on the eve of the weekend rail strikes, our East of England reporter Ed Crawford is out and about in Suffolk to find out what's on people's minds. So, Ed, very good morning to you. What's happening there?
Good morning. I am in the historic market town of Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. Now, Bury St Edmunds is a very sought-after place to live. It's a very nice place to live, partly because of the rich history. If you look at this building here, this is just a typical example of the kind of architecture you find in Bury St Edmunds. It's a medieval town that sort of kept its history. So when we're on the doorstep, we like to be out and about and finding out what issues matter to the people on the street. So let's see who's behind this door. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Herr. Good morning.
May I ask, could you introduce yourself for the camera?
Hi, my name is Michele Pagliuca. I'm one of the owners of Rustico. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you, sir?
Hi, I'm Jose Marian. I'm one of the owners of Rustico too.
Fantastic. Well, this is a beautiful building, guys. Do you want to give us a quick tour?
Yeah, please. This is the main
So can you tell us how old is this building?
It's just over 300 years old, this building. This is the main sitting area. As you can see, all the beams all around the building. Yeah, it's a very beautiful historic building.
Fantastic. Well, it is a gorgeous building. I see you've got these exposed beams. These presumably came from old oaks, that sort of thing. So tell me, you're a new business, I understand. You've been open for, what, 4 months now?
Yeah, just over 4 months. We opened the 20th of February, so just to get really brand new, basically, yes. Yeah.
So a very turbulent time to open a restaurant. How's it been so far?
So, but the restaurant has been amazing and been very, very good response for all our customers. So it could have been better, I have to say. Yeah, we're very excited.
Fantastic. A lot of people have been telling us that they're really feeling the squeeze with the energy prices. Have you seen quite steep energy prices?
We did feel it. We did say our electricity bill just went up to the roof, and obviously most of the equipment they run on electricity, so our bill, yes, it went very high, yes.
Well, also, you guys make fresh food every day. You also import a lot of stuff from Italy, I understand. Have you found, like, ingredient prices have gone up a bit?
They went up, and they were difficult to get it, even for the shortage, mainly in the flour and the olive oil. They just went up to the roof as well. We have to look at different supply, different way to bring it over to us, yes.
That's it, adapting and overcoming. And I see Marion is up to a bit of preparation there. Let's go and check that out. Good morning, Marion. What are you up to at the moment?
Okay, so this morning we are doing a fresh pasta. It's egg-based pasta. So we are doing tonarelle and parpadelle. There are two types of our fresh pasta. Our parpadelle is going to the oxtail. It's a homemade sauce for 5 hours cooking. The meat we take it from our local butcher. And this is our restaurant. We are doing fresh food, 100% in the house.
Fantastic. So you're sourcing your meat locally, you're importing bits and pieces where you can. Have you found there's been any disruptions in the supply chains, Michele?
There is in time, not always, but sometimes we can see that the product they take longer to come over, yes. Mostly because it gets stuck on the border and for regulation, yes.
It's one of these things, isn't it? It's a very challenging situation out there. Now, are you guys struggling with the importation? You said it's going quite clearly.
Yeah, it's going quite clearly. Just sometimes it's taking a little bit longer than usually, so we are running out of stock or stuff. But but it's one of those things that we can't do nothing about.
Fantastic. Well, you're opening a restaurant in a difficult time. Everyone's feeling the pinch of the cost of living crisis. We've got national rail strikes going all over the place. It's a difficult time, and there's a storm that the British people are weathering. But it seems like you guys are holding strong. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, Ed, thanks very much indeed. Look, loads of you getting in touch this one. Interesting one from Nigel, because a lot of people were saying, you know, this is nothing to do with the Prime Minister, the resignation that we've seen of Oliver Dowden and the by-election defeats. Nigel says, whatever happens, Boris will never resign. He will always put his own interests before that of the Conservative Party.
Pat says it's not time for Boris to go. 2 by-election results that were expected. But for goodness sake, give the man a break. No Prime Minister has ever had to deal with everything that he has.
Yeah, and on that polio issue, Tracy says if polio has been found in our sewage system, we should all be very concerned, given the amount of sewage that is pumped into our rivers and seas across the UK. I don't know quite what happens to the virus once it's out and about like that. Don't know.
Doctor back in to tell us.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, though, Tracy. Keep your thoughts coming through. GBViews at gbnews.uk. We'll bring you all the headlines in just a second.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. It's going to start to turn more unsettled over the next 24 hours or so. There will be some sunshine but some hefty showers too, and it will start to turn fresher, particularly in the west. And the reason for this is low pressure is going to start dominating our weather pattern. Blustery showers, fresher conditions starting to move in time for the weekend. So Friday morning, quite a cloudy start across much of the UK, 1 or 2 showers as well. Best of the sunshine will be across eastern parts of England, central, southern and eastern Scotland too. But by the afternoon, the heat and humidity here will spark a few hefty showers, some thunderstorms possible. A lot of the UK will be cloudy, there'll be a few bright or sunny spells. And then into the afternoon across Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, southwest England, a band of rain, which could be heavy at times, will move in here. And turning fresher as a result, 20 or 21 Celsius. In the east, holding on to the heat and humidity, highs of 25 or 26. Through the evening, thunderstorms move away. Then this band of rain pushes north and east across the UK. Behind it, fresher conditions following, mixture of clear skies and scattered showers. So a much more comfortable night for sleeping Friday night into Saturday morning. Towns and cities holding up in double figures, but slipping into single figures in the countryside. So a bright start to Saturday morning, but there will be a mixture of showers, some of these heavy. Showers most frequent across western areas through the day. The east holding on to the driest and brightest weather, but there will be some showers here too. Perhaps some longer spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland later on in the day. And also with this low pressure nearby, we will see increasing winds, particularly through the Irish Sea, some gales developing towards Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And a fresher feeling day for all. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, perhaps 23 to 25 across southeast England. And that remains so for the weekend. We're looking at a mixture of sunny spells and showers, some of these heavy at times, and temperatures overall around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Breaking news this morning, and Chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden, has resigned just hours after the Tories lose 2 by-elections.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Friday, the 24th of June. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We are, of course, live across the whole of the UK on your TV, your radio and online, so you can take us out and about with you today because there is a lot to catch up on.
There certainly is. So Oliver Dowden says he shares the distress of Conservative voters over recent events.
But meanwhile, those by-election results saw a historic win for the Lib Dems in Tiverton and Honiton.
And in a second defeat of the night for the Tories, Labour have reclaimed the Red Wall seat of Wakefield.
In other news this morning, the policing minister has exclusively told GB News the government is on track to deliver 20,000 new police officers by next March. This as the government looks to get set to get tough on crime. We'll bring you the latest.
And of course, we're on your doorstep this morning.
I'm in Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk, one of the crown jewels of Suffolk, and I'm here knocking on the doors, asking people what news is important to them.
And it hasn't happened for 2 years, but today Glastonbury returns. Festival seeing the likes of Paul McCartney, Diana Ross and the Pet Shop Boys in Somerset. And of course, Stephanie Tecci is there.
Over 100,000 music lovers are here for the greatest show on earth. The rail strikes haven't dampened people's spirits. The poor weather hasn't dampened people's spirits because people are here to party. Finally, after 3 years, everyone is back at Worthy Farm.
Ah, well, if you've got any wonderful memories of Glastonbury, or indeed if you're there at the moment and you're awake, although very few people probably will be awake at this time in the morning in Glastonbury, get up to have a wee.
Would you fancy it?
No.
I've gone past the
Not even in a
festival stage.
glamping type, you know, really glamorous. Well, I mean, Stephanie will show us a bit later because I think she's in quite a glamorous tent.
It's leopard skin.
Yeah.
She has a leopard skin tent. She says it's so she can recognise it from a distance.
That's a good idea.
But I mean-
I'd want a really nice loo and a bath probably as well, you know? 'Cause I just can't face the idea of, you know, camping out and I don't...
Last time I went to a festival, we had to pop off to the swimming bath so we could have a shower after day 3.
Lovely, I'll bet you were charming to meet. That's the trouble. But do let us know if you've got any really great Glastonbury memories, or like I said, if you're there at the moment, how you're coping. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So we start with breaking news this morning, and Oliver Dowden has resigned. Did it about 5:30 this morning. He's no longer chairman of the Conservative Party. It comes after 2 by-election defeats.
Which had only happened about an hour before.
Yeah, the results only came through at
About
sort of
4:15, 4:30.
something like that. Well, look, in a letter to the Prime Minister, Mr Dowden said somebody must take responsibility.
Well, our political correspondent Tom Harwood is, I think, at College Green, outside Westminster right now. Hi there, Tom. I mean, do you think Oliver Dowden was encouraged to resign? Or, I mean, the timing is interesting, isn't it? What's your take on that?
It certainly is. It suggests to me that this was likely a premeditated act, that the chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden, had been thinking about what he would do in the event that the Conservatives were to lose these 2 fairly crucial by-elections, these 2 by-elections that represent so many different parts of the Conservative voting coalition. Wakefield up in the heart of the Red Wall, and Tiverton down in what the Lib Dems have come to call the Blue Wall, of those seats that are sort of a little bit more well-to-do, that have been traditionally more Conservative, as opposed to the Red Wall, traditionally more Labour-leaning areas. Well, these 2 disparate parts of the Conservative coalition fractured last night, one going Labour and one going Liberal Democrat, of course. This was not all that unexpected, but perhaps the scale of the Liberal Democrats' victory down in Tiverton, for example, 30% swing against the Conservative Party, albeit on a lower turnout than in the general election, but an enormous and seismic swing there to the Liberal Democrats. I think that perhaps it was simply the scale of the Liberal Democrats' victory, the scale of the Conservatives' defeat in these, in specifically Tiverton, but of course in Wakefield as well, a 17-point swing against the Conservatives there. Just that scale became very hard to defend for someone who is in charge of the Conservative campaign operation. Of course, looking back to previous by-elections, there was the Batley and Spen by-election, which the Conservatives failed to pick up around this time last year. Back then, the chairman of the Conservative Party was Amanda Milling. She was moved on in the reshuffle a few months after that by-election, so perhaps it was inevitable that in a reshuffle that is expected to come around this summer, Oliver Dowden would have been moved on in any case, but certainly a resignation this soon after the by-election shows that Oliver Dowden simply didn't think that he could defend the Conservative performance on the inevitable media round that would have taken place this morning.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to say, Tom, I mean, I know we're all quite sceptical in this business that we're in, but if you look at his resignation letter, there is quite a lot written between the lines, isn't there?
There certainly is. Now, Oliver Dowden made sure to say that this was a personal decision, that this was for him and him alone to make. However, there is a suggestion there that there needs to be change within the Conservative Party, that there needs to be a greater sense of organisation or indeed policy change within the Conservative Party. Some of those lines in what is quite a pithy letter, not particularly long, very easily digestible, and one might add potentially shareable on social media. Whether or not it was written with that in mind remains to be seen, but certainly there's a lot to think about there for the Conservative Party, although a question remains as to whether more cabinet ministers will think that now is the time to walk. I'm not sure that this is going to be the start of any big flow of resignations at this stage. Let's remember that the Prime Minister is away in Rwanda today and is embarking on a course of summits, not just in Rwanda but also in Bavaria and Madrid afterwards over the course of the next week or so. And also members of Parliament aren't so much in the building behind me, but are back in their constituencies today as well. The dynamics of that in terms of how these by-election losses are responded to will be interesting. No doubt MPs taking soundings from their constituents, but potentially it won't be until Monday that we see more significant pressure on the Prime Minister, although no doubt there will be some front benchers in the Conservative Party who are weighing up their positions this morning.
Carol says, Tom, Carol, one of our viewers, says, how many by-elections will it take for Boris to get the message? What do you think his reaction will be?
Well, it's interesting, of course, because we had this confidence vote a few weeks ago where many of the reasons why Conservative MPs in numbers reaching 40% of the parliamentary party voted no confidence in the Prime Minister, some of those reasons were the widespread expectations that these by-elections may well be lost. So to that extent, to some extent, maybe these particular by-elections were priced into the calculations of some Conservative MPs. I suppose the question comes if more by-elections take place, if the losses continue at pace, and if there isn't a significant turnaround in how the party is perceived. That may become a bigger issue. The more events that happen, the harder it is to defend the performance of the Conservative Party. And it's interesting listening to the words of someone else who resigned from Cabinet at the end of last year, Lord Frost, the former Brexit minister. Well, Lord Frost said that the Prime Minister really has until October to turn the ship around, that Lord Frost said that the Prime Minister has the opportunity to win back the trust of the Conservative Party, but setting almost that October deadline there, Conservative Party conference, a timeline by which the Prime Minister should turn around on particularly matters of policy. Now, we're not expecting any other by-elections in the immediate time frame, but no doubt some will come within this Parliament, and if the electoral prospects of the Conservative Party haven't begun to turn around by the time we see other electoral events, well then it does become rather difficult for the Prime Minister.
OK. Tom, for now, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's reflect a bit more on those two by-election results. Firstly, a historic win for the Lib Dems in Tiverton and Honiton, where there was a swing of almost 30% from the Tories. That's like the 12th biggest swing ever. It is huge. It saw the Tories lose to the Liberal Democrats' Richard Ford. He secured a majority of 6,144. That seat has been held by the Tories since it was created 25 years ago.
And meanwhile, in Wakefield, Labour have reclaimed this red wall constituency with Simon Lightwood. He was elected with a majority of 4,925, and the swing there was 12.7 from the Tories.
Well, in a moment, we'll speak to our reporter in Wakefield. Let's first, though, go to Tiverton and Honiton, where Jeff Moody is standing by for us. I mean, this has been, a huge result, Jeff, a huge swing against the Conservative Party.
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of journalists like me use a lot of hyperbole today, and it's pretty unjustified because this is unprecedented. People here in Tiverton are just waking up and starting their journeys to work, and there is a sense that something fundamental has changed here. A lot of people are beeping their horns, they're giving us the thumbs up sign, they're saying yes to the Liberal Democrats. There's a sense that things have changed. Quite whether they've worked out how far that's changed and how those changes have gone as far as Westminster yet, I'm not so sure. It is a thumping majority. It was a 24 majority for the Conservatives. That has been wiped out overnight. A 6,000 majority now for the Liberal Democrats. And as you said, Stephen, this hasn't happened. This has always been a very safe Conservative seat since the constituency was created back in 1997. But before 1997, this was part of a different constituency and has actually voted Conservative since the 1920s. The term dyed-in-the-wool Conservative could have been created for this seat. I came here on Monday and I really noticed the Liberal Democrats campaign. They certainly fought a hard, long, tiring campaign. They had many, many foot soldiers out and about. And you could see the flags everywhere. You could see the Liberal Democrat signs everywhere. People were wearing badges along the street. And you could say, well, you know, that shows that they had more helpers, but it also shows that people wanted to put their stickers in their windows. So we knew that things were going to change. Boris Johnson said, you know, people always lose these by-elections. Governments always lose by-elections. They do. But what has never happened before is a government has never lost a by-election so badly as it has this time round.
Before we join you again, I'd love to know what that statue is that's being done up behind you. Thanks very much, though. Let's cross to Wakefield, and our reporter Anna Riley is there for us. Thumping majority there. Quite a vitriolic speech, I thought, from the winning candidate.
Yes, that's right, Anne. Good morning. Yes, he's the NHS worker Simon Lightwood who has won with a majority of 4,925 votes for Labour. This seat here was traditionally Labour for the last 80 years until that election in 2019, where the Tories cinched the vote with over 3,000 vote majority. And Simon Lightwood, he did say when he was elected in, speaking after the result, he said, addressing the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated. Your government has no ideas, no plan to address the big issues facing our country. He said that he felt absolutely over the moon about the result, and he said that their focus, the Labour focus, was on the cost of living. He also said people wanted a fresh start for Wakefield and that they'd be rebuilding the red wall going forward and that Labour would be pushing forward. He said again the big things were the cost of living and that people were really angry with the Prime Minister over Partygate and the cost of living. Now, the turnout in this election was 39.1% here in Wakefield. The Conservatives did come in second place. They were followed by Independent Akif Akbar in third and the Yorkshire Party in fourth. The Greens were fifth, Reform sixth, and in a sharp contrast to throughout the day, people obviously waking up to this news here in Wakefield. It was no real surprise that Labour got in here, but I'll be getting reaction from people living here about what they want in the next upcoming, going forward, what they want from Simon Lightwood as their MP going forward.
I mean, both very poor, actually, just over 50% in Tiverton and Honiton. As Anna was saying, 39% in Wakefield. Now, there is an argument to be said that perhaps a lot of Conservative voters who may be disillusioned with the Prime Minister
chose to stay away rather than vote any other way.
Yeah.
And we know that there was a bit of collusion as well going on in Tiverton and Honiton because there was, I think it was a Conservative who actually said, if you want to get the Tories out, don't vote Labour, vote Lib Dem, which is one of the reasons that Lib Dems did so well. But they did a lot of grassroots campaigning, which they're very, very good at always.
They are the party of grassroots.
So no one's saying they don't deserve their win.
Well, in fact, Richard Ford, in his acceptance speech, did sort of allude to the fact that a lot of Labour voters had lent the Lib Dems their vote. Now, of course, the Lib Dems did very badly in Wakefield. So, tactical voting?
Tactical voting or just plain hard work, grassroots, campaigning? Don't know. Yeah. I mean, it has been reported, I think it's true as well, that Boris Johnson didn't go to Wakefield once.
No. But it's also it's how you view these things. Now, did the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party win these by-elections, or did the Conservative Party lose them?
And it is midterm, and they are by-elections, so you can read into that what you will. It's interesting that a bit later on in the programme, the various parties offer up people for us to interview. We call it the rounds. You get whatever poor minister has been voted in to say, to actually defend the indefensible sometimes. Oliver Dowden was due to speak to us a bit later on. I doubt very much he will be doing so. Obviously, we'll still be trying. But he is, of course, the man who resigned just about half an hour before we went on air at 6 o'clock this morning. And that's going to cause repercussions, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Whether, say, other people will... Whether he's done it deliberately as a tactic or not, we don't know, but still, would other people follow? On that resignation, Lynn's been in touch. Morning to you, Lynn. It's sad that he feels he had to resign, but has he asked his constituents what they think about it all? Though he's not resigned as an MP, just as a chairman of the Conservative Party, as a minister. Nicely done while our brilliant PM is out of the country. Coward, says Lynn. What do you think? GBViews at gbnews.uk.
You could also argue that the Prime Minister is out of the country while some of his worst results are coming in and he's not having to face the music.
Very possibly.
Who's the coward? I don't know. Let us know. gbviews at gbnews.uk.
Well, if you have just joined us, that is our main news today. The chairman of the Conservative Party has resigned after the Conservatives suffered 2 by-election defeats.
Yes, in an open letter to the Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden wrote, "Yesterday's parliamentary by-elections are the latest in a run of very poor results for our party. We cannot carry on with business as usual. Somebody must take responsibility. And I have concluded that in these circumstances, it would not be right for me to remain in office."
Downing Street says British Airways should draw up contingency plans to minimise strike disruption at airports this summer. The company says it's extremely disappointed that workers at Heathrow, including check-in staff, have voted in favour of industrial action in a dispute over pay.
And new research shows that COVID vaccinations saved around 20 million lives around the world in the first year of the pandemic. Imperial College London estimates that at least 66% of the world's population have now received at least one COVID jab.
Well, there is much more to come for you this morning, including our royal reporter catching up with the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge in Cambridge.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. It's going to start to turn more unsettled over the next 24 hours or so. There will be some sunshine, but some hefty showers too, and it will start to turn fresher, particularly in the west. And the reason for this is low pressure is going to start dominating our weather pattern. Blustery showers, fresher conditions starting to move in time for the weekend. So Friday morning, quite a cloudy start across much of the UK, 1 or 2 showers as well. Best of the sunshine will be across eastern parts of England, central, southern and eastern Scotland too. But by the afternoon, the heat and humidity here will spark a few hefty showers, some thunderstorms possible. A lot of the UK will be cloudy, there'll be a few bright or sunny spells. And then into the afternoon across Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, southwest England, a band of rain, which could be heavy at times, will move in here. And turning fresher as a result, 20 or 21 Celsius. In the east, holding on to the heat and humidity, highs of 25 or 26. Through the evening, thunderstorms move away. Then this band of rain pushes north and east across the UK. Behind it, fresher conditions following, mixture of clear skies and scattered showers. So a much more comfortable night for sleeping Friday night into Saturday morning. Towns and cities holding up in double figures, but slipping into single figures in the countryside. So a bright start to Saturday morning, but there will be a mixture of showers, some of these heavy. Showers most frequent across western areas through the day. The east holding on to the driest and brightest weather, but there will be some showers here too. Perhaps some longer spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland later on in the day. And also with this low pressure nearby, we will see increasing winds, particularly through the Irish Sea, some gales developing towards Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And a fresher feeling day for all. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, perhaps 23 to 25 across southeast England. And that remains so for the weekend. We're looking at a mixture of sunny spells and showers, some of these heavy at times, and temperatures overall around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
"7:23, morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, we've been reporting all morning, of course, the results of those two by-elections, and then the shock resignation of the chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden. He resigned within, half an hour to an hour of those by-election results. So what's going on? Let's speak to former Conservative Cabinet Minister David Meller. It's a big question, what's going on. But how do you read it? First of all, you've been looking very carefully at Oliver Dowden's resignation letter.
Yes. And if you look at Oliver Dowden's resignation letter, it says lots of things, but one thing it doesn't say. It doesn't express any continuing loyalty to Boris Johnson. He's loyal to the Conservative Party, but that's a very different thing. And also, it doesn't say anything by way of congratulating Boris Johnson on his leadership. So this is the first person to effectively say, Boris, get thee gone. Now, the issue is, will others turn up in the course of the next couple of days? But if I were Boris, I wouldn't be buying too many green bananas, I don't think.
He's said in this letter that, this is an absolutely personal decision which I have taken alone. Do you believe that?
It might be true. I think Oliver Dowden's a decent chap. But the point is, what he has done is really stuck a prom into the rear ends of a number of other members of the cabinet who ought to be asking themselves, what is the future of the Conservative Party under Boris? Does the Conservative Party have a future under Boris? See, it's the scale of this defeat. I mean, I'm a sad nerd, okay, and I can remember my first by-election I can remember was in 1962 in South Dorset, and when I was in politics, the rest of it I know about by-elections. It is normal for governing parties to do badly in by-elections. It's unprecedented for a governing party to do as badly as they did last night. And the significant things are, normally the turnout of the by-election is half what it was at the general election in the same constituency. This was over 50%. Lots of these thoroughly decent people from the West Country come from Dorset. I'm familiar with people from Devon, decent people. They couldn't wait to get out and express their contempt for Boris. And the question is, Boris has lost his moral authority to lead, and they are not prepared to put up with him. And the fact that the scale of the defeat was so great. I mean, people keep on saying, oh, they overturned the majority of, 24,000. They didn't. Don't forget, the Lib Dems finished third in that constituency at the general election. They overturned a majority of 27,000. And while, there'd be a lot of bull about the Lib Dems, they always come out with this stuff. Austin Mitchell was a good friend of mine, Labour MP. He used to say, the purpose of the Liberal Democrats is to be a bucket for the voter to spit in. And that's exactly...
That's very harsh on any Liberal Dem
anyway, well,
voters.
But look, let's be quite clear. The Liberal Democrats are pretty harsh on the rest of us.
Yes, and well, that's very true. But they're very, very good local campaigners, aren't they? So you can't sort of take it all away from them. However, I was just wondering about Oliver Dowden's timing. Why would he have done it this morning within an hour of...
He decided to do it, I reckon, a few days ago.
Yeah, that's what... So why didn't he?
But the only issue is, and, we were having a chat in the break, and you said to me, has he fixed it up with other people? I'm not sure that he did. But you see, this is a very different cabinet. Margaret Thatcher, in the end, had to go because she called in members of her cabinet and they had to say whether she should stay or go. And most of them said she should go. And so she went. But this is a very different sort of cabinet. It's not the best and the brightest of the Conservative Party. It's those who are prepared to work with Boris. Most of them owe their position to Boris. Most of them would not be in anybody else's cabinet, and so they're going to react in a different way. But at some point, the game is up for Boris. I thought that from the time of the election. The game is up for Boris. How long, look, I like those deaths where, someone comes in on a play and woof, that's it. But I also go to opera where the main character takes 20 to 25 minutes to die. Boris is an operatic character,
Yeah. What about, this all boils down to the next general election, doesn't it? And whether backbenchers, particularly, and members of the cabinet, think that with different leadership, could a place like Tiverton and Honiton go back to the Tories?
It'll go back to the Tories. There's no doubt about that.
But would it go back under Boris?
Well, that's the question. But also, you see, the thing about Boris, Boris is a character. Boris was bigger than party politics. That's why he was elected Mayor of London twice. He had a magic with the public that meant people didn't judge him as a politician. But now he is seen to have not just feet of clay, but, almost a whole body of clay. I think the question is, can you ever get it back? And, once a reputation has been deflated, it's very difficult to put the air back in it again. So I thought from the moment, 40% of his backbenchers, of his members of Parliament, voted against him. So Boris is toast. But at the end of the day, Boris has one great interest in life. I'll give you a clue. He's blonde and quite a bulky person, right? This is Boris. I don't think Boris has any interest in the public, but and in the Conservative Party and in the Conservative voters. But at a certain point, he would have to be dragged kicking and screaming from the stage. And we've just seen the first person who's tried to do that, Oliver Dowden.
So what do you say to people like Lynn, who got in touch this morning? I've been through her email already, but she's talking about Oliver Dowden resigning, saying he's a coward. But she says, it's all very nicely done whilst our brilliant Prime Minister is out of the country. There are a lot of people who get in touch with us who think, he's the best thing since sliced bread.
I'm sure they do, but there aren't many of them.
And there may be fewer and fewer.
Exactly.
Because, look at the country at the moment. things aren't exactly going well, are they? I mean, terminal chaos, says the Metro. I mean, we're facing more and more strikes, and even if you consider that, you know, some of those strikes are justified, or the government is justified in standing up to the unions, the country feels as though it's falling apart.
And you see, there will always be loyal people, and thank God for loyal people, and some people are more loyal to Boris than Boris deserves. But the issue would always seem to me to be, when you ask people in these polls where they stand on the subject of Boris, you get returns of over 70% saying he should resign. And the question is, everybody goes through a bad patch. I mean, look, I was Mrs. Thatcher's youngest minister for 4 years. I was a minister in her government for 9 years. Margaret Thatcher was a difficult person to work for and a difficult person for the public to put up with. But at the end of the day, the public admired her, even if they didn't like her. But the trouble with Boris is they used to like him, but never really admired him. And now I think they don't. Their lack of admiration for him is terminal, and that's bad for a political leader.
So you said earlier Boris is toast.
I do think so. But then I said that, you know.
Yeah, you've been
I
saying it for a while.
am dragged kicking and streaming into these studios. And I said that, you know, at the time of the election, you cannot survive in a long term 40% of your own members of parliament, you know.
I just want to know if you think, certainly with a place like Wakefield, whether Labour won it or the Tories lost it, because Keir Starmer has just issued a statement saying Wakefield has shown the country has lost confidence in the Tories. The result is a clear judgment on the Conservative Party that's run out of energy and ideas. Britain deserves better. Wakefield has voted Labour because we have the solutions for the challenges facing the British people.
It's the way he tells them. I mean, that's sort of straight off the word processor. But these are two very different by-elections. The Wakefield by-election is a traditional by-election. You would never expect a Conservative government to hold on to a seat like Wakefield, and they didn't. But they were not disgraced at Wakefield, they just lost. Honiton, that's the Tory party, were trashed, minced up, and then put through the mincing machine again. This is a result that no Conservative Prime Minister can really survive, because this is the Tory heartland. And, I mean, as I've said before, the size of the turnout, the scale of the defeat, the fact that Lib Dems came from third to win, and they didn't just win by scraping in, they won by several thousand votes.
How does it work, then, in the next cabinet meeting? When Boris goes in and all the ministers are there, sat round the big table, who speaks up? What happens? How do people express their views?
It's a great question. It's like that great story about Margaret Thatcher, who was thought to dominate her cabinet. So when she was ordering a dinner for the cabinet, she said, "I'll have beef." And the chef said, "What about the vegetables?" And she said, "Well, they'll have beef too." But
is that true?
Yeah, well, apparently it's a good joke. But the point is, her cabinet was a much tougher group of people, because, to be fair to her, people didn't have to pledge everlasting loyalty to her to be in the cabinet. She thought they could do the jobs they were in. But you see, Boris is a very different sort of cabinet. You can't imagine, Dominic Raab being Deputy Prime Minister in any other cabinet. You can't imagine Priti Patel being Home Secretary in any other cabinet. So how will these people react? You know, these are animals whose master, on whom they are totally dependent.
So Boris will sit down and say, right, this is the order, this is the agenda we're going to talk through. And does anyone say, actually, Prime Minister, before we go into the agenda, can we just bring up the matter of? Does anyone have the courage to do that sort of thing?
It's a very good question. As a betting man, I wouldn't bet the ranch on it. But I tell you, there is an inexorability about these things in politics. And he cannot survive. The only problem is, well, I've given you the operatic analogy, you know. How many acts is he going to be lumbering around the stage, fatally wounded, but still singing his last aria, you know? This is the point.
It's too fascinating to talk to you, Dave. I'm getting told to shut up because we're out of time, but I just want to ask you one more.
I never shut up. I'm not going to leave.
And we'll pay the price for it later.
We will, yeah.
In terms of those cabinet ministers who you see, they're all loyal to Boris, but they will also be thinking, won't they, well, if I want to get into another cabinet with another leader, perhaps now is the time to act.
To prepare the ground. Yeah, you know, there are plenty of rats, and they're now aboard a sinking ship, sadly.
I wonder if anyone else will resign today.
But Dowden's was a brave thing, because, you know, it was not the usual mealy-mouthed load of rubbish that resignation letters have. He made the points with dignity, and he made the points, you know, so it wasn't a long letter. So, you know, even those of us who get bored with these things can get through it. But what he didn't say was so much more important than what he did say, and there was not a single word of tribute to Boris. People are going to notice that.
Yeah. David Meller, I think we're catching up with you a little bit later on, aren't we?
Please do, yes, absolutely. Who knows what will have happened by then?
Yeah, let us know what you think about it. Do you agree with David or not? GBViews at gbnews.uk. We'd love to have your thoughts this morning.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
"7:37, this is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Just a quick one on the Tiverton by-election. Pat has been in touch. Morning to you, Pat, saying Labour did not contest the seat as they knew they would not win, giving the Liberal Democrats the seat.
They did stand.
They did stand.
Because they got 120 votes or something, I think.
They got 1,000, didn't they?
Oh, I don't know.
They got about 1,000.
It wasn't many.
But nowhere near enough. So they did run a candidate.
Yeah, and obviously the Labour faithful did vote to a certain extent, but not much at all.
Maybe they didn't campaign very hard. You could be right on that point, Pat. But anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. Newspapers for you. The Mail's reporting on the Rwanda story, saying the PM has urged critics to keep an open mind on the policy ahead of his meeting with Prince Charles.
And also on that, the Daily Express has an exclusive on a Strasbourg judge that has criticised the secrecy with which the European Court of Human Rights conducted itself over the Rwanda migrant flight ruling.
The Guardian says airport staff are going to vote on strike action as the threat of disruption to life in the UK widens.
And the drive for green fuel made from wheat and maize is to be relaxed as the Prime Minister wants the land to be used for growing food instead. The story in The Telegraph says it could affect our net zero pledges.
The Sun says the Queen is back in the saddle. She's riding again, a year after being told to quit. All comes despite her recent mobility issues. Well, she'll have few mobility issues if she's on the back of a horse.
Yeah, but hey, if she wants to, and she feels
absolutely.
OK about it, that's all good.
Why not? Let's go through the papers with the editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater, and the author and broadcaster, Nikki Hodgson. Morning to you both. Let's start with a cheery story, Tom. The rail strikes.
Yes, well, we might be closer to a deal.
Really?
Is the upbeat bit. So bosses from Network Rail have suggested that whilst previously they were miles apart from the RMT in terms of some sort of arrangement, they're now metres apart, is what they're saying. A package being discussed which would involve a guarantee against compulsory redundancies, which was one of the core things that the RMT was seeking, and also some sort of arrangement on pay. It does seem like what percentage that is still something which is obviously being fought over the RMT.
They want 7%.
Around 7%. Exactly.
But are they still talking then?
Talks are ongoing, it seems like. I mean, the argument from the RMT is still that but essentially Network Rail's wings are clipped by the Department for Transport, that because of the fact that Grant Shapps isn't giving them enough latitude to discuss this properly, that it's not happening. But it does seem like a deal maybe in the offing, or at least a lot closer than it was previously, so we might have avert any further action
disruption
in recent weeks.
Nikki, tell us about this amazing story of a swimming coach who saved a life.
Yeah, so this is about artistic swimmer Anita Alvarez, who's 25, and she was competing in a solo routine at the World Aquatic Championships when she fainted and she sunk to the bottom of the pool. There's these incredible pictures because it was a competition, so it was obviously
So
being
she
caught on
fainted
camera.
in the water?
She fainted in the water, sunk to the bottom of the pool, and then her swimming coach, Andrea Fuentes, who was watching, said that she couldn't get the message across to the lifeguards quick enough, so she jumped in herself and saved this amazing swimmer.
How important it is, even if you're a professional swimmer, actually, to have somebody watching you.
Absolutely. I mean, the picture's just absolutely startling, but apparently this isn't the first time that she's fainted, so this must be quite worrying for everybody around her watching it. It's kind of like second, third time.
The dramatic pictures of her being lifted out.
Absolutely.
She just looks like a complete limp body.
Yeah, she just kind of looks like a doll, doesn't she? But yeah, she apparently she fainted last year during an Olympic qualifier in Barcelona, and she was also rescued by Fuentes on that occasion.
So she either needs to give up swimming or always have somebody watching her at all
Well,
times.
it seems that they need to get to the bottom of why she's fainting, I
Or
suppose.
wear armbands.
I think that might disqualify her.
Yeah.
Well,
slow it down a bit.
That might be the way forward.
Armbands.
Armbands, they're great.
Oh, Tom, now, this weird Alexa... oh, I shouldn't have said it,
No,
should
don't
I?
say that.
The Amazon device.
The Amazon Echo device.
yeah. They've got weird plans for it, and this will divide people, because some people think it's spooky and other people think it's nice.
Yeah, so everyone we've been talking to about in the green room today about this, it seems to divide opinion. So this Amazon device, which will remain nameless, a new feature which is being suggested is that you would essentially be able to, say, upload a recording of a long-dead loved one, which could then read bedtime stories to children, or again the voice of the Amazon
it learns
assistant.
how to use
It
that
learns
voice.
how to use that, mimic that voice.
Exactly, and I'm definitely on in terms of the response on the sort of, this is quite creepy and sinister.
Really? See, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I find it creepy
Something
too. I suppose one of the things is, I don't know if I've got an old phone with a voice message from my dear departed dad on, and every so often I do go listen to it because I find it quite triggering. It's not an easy thing to go listen to. If I thought I had a device with him talking to me all the time, I'd probably lose it, and I probably feel like I was being watched in a weird way as well. Yeah. Maybe I'd behave better.
But it is being told off. But it's like, I suppose it's one thing to have a record, it's another thing to almost have it ventriloquised for you, like
yes,
from
but then
beyond
you
the
get your
grave.
dad to tell you the weather. Sorry, I'm just reading my
he
phone.
did that anyway. Yeah, you're right. I could get him to do the things he used to do, which is, get an umbrella and stuff like that, which, again, I'm not very good at now. So.
You see, I'm up for that. And even on the novelty value, I sort of think, if when my mum is thankfully still with us and will be for a very long time, but even getting her voice on it, it'd just be hilarious.
No, I told you before, I think, like Christine Lampard, Christine Bleakley, TV presenter, said that she's got a very strong Northern Ireland accent. And she said she started talking to her...
device.
The reason we're not able to say it is it activates devices all over the country when you say it. She said, and it started to impersonate her very, very strong Northern Ireland accent.
Really?
Started to speak to her in the same sort of way with the same inflections, and it really creeped her out. They obviously can do this already, this mimicking.
Yeah. You get a parrot if you want mimicry, I suppose.
Yeah. Would you want your long-lost
sort of
granny to be
analog
reading a
Alexa,
bedtime
parrot.
story to you?
I've changed mine to a man. Mine is a man.
Oh, I see. What's he called then? Still called the same name?
Still called the same thing.
Oh.
Well,
I
find
switch
it
my
quite-
sat-nav
yeah.
to French sometimes because I find it quite interesting.
It's a good idea, isn't it? I find it quite offensive that all the assistants are women. I do find that a bit
Yes,
annoying.
it is.
So, yeah.
I never thought of it like that, but,
Is he a hunky man? Does he sound
I
sort of
don't know.
hunky and male?
Well, he sounds male.
I might plug it in again then.
You want to try
I
it?
unplugged it because it kept misinterpreting what I was saying.
You just have to say, change your voice.
Oh, really? You tell it to and it just...
and it changes to a man.
Well, there you
Quite
are.
exciting.
Weird. Very weird.
There you go. Nikki, witches.
Do you have a witch in your family history? I was thinking about this. I do actually apparently have some witches in my family. Quite partial to being called a witch as well. Think about that whatever you want. But, this is actually, it's quite a serious story about how During the 16th century and the mid-18th century, there were lots of women, and some men actually, that were convicted of witchcraft and burned at the stake, mainly in Scotland actually, also in England, but mainly in Scotland. And Scottish MSP Natalie Dunn has actually launched a consultation to repeal the convictions on a members' bill. So it's this idea...
What's the point?
Well, Nicola Sturgeon has already apologised to the families of the people that were...
Has she?
Yes. To the families of people that were convicted of witchcraft. And so, it's this idea that, well, we know that we've started doing this kind of reparations thing, haven't we, with people who were wrongly convicted of crimes in the past. So I know like the famous example is Alan Turing. But it's really, really interesting. And apparently there are some covens, and including the Witches of Scotland campaign group, that are very, very pro this happening. So I just find it so interesting. I mean, there were a lot of people, up to 6,000 people in Scotland convicted. So it is quite a number of people.
It's awful. When you look back on it, it is absolutely awful. However, I do sort of think, what's the point in pardoning someone who was killed 300 years ago?
Why not? Well, is it anachronistic as well to try and impose a modern view back on the past and say, OK, isn't it better just to say, well, we've learnt that probably isn't the best thing to do and then move on?
No,
I don't know.
It's stronger than that, though. I mean, it was just plain evil and wrong and misogynistic.
It was totally misogynistic.
But if you think about the history of all kinds of injustices, politicians would do nothing but apologise for past historical wrongs.
Well, they do. They're meant to, aren't they? As we well know.
A department, a ministry for apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Look, we just got time for a quick 1 minute on The Guardian, Tom, where David Lammy, of all people, is now pro-Brexit, sort of.
Yes, so he's essentially saying Labour is not going to touch Brexit. Obviously, from David Lammy, you trust that about as far as you can throw him. The same David Lammy, I think the day after the Brexit vote, said this madness has got to stop and it needs to be overturned, who compared Tory Brexiteers to not just Nazis, but said they were worse than Nazis, famously, is now trying to say that Labour is actually in favour of Brexit. If nothing else, I mean, I wouldn't take his word for granted here by any stretch of the imagination. I think it does just show how, in terms of the public and in terms of a kind of question, Labour at least have to pretend to go along with it now, which I think is something of a victory and just demonstrates how strong, the public support was behind Brexit, how everyone did want to move on from it.
Well, it's very good that he's decided to say that he's now willing to accept a democratic vote 6 years ago.
It's only taken him 6 years to get there, but given how bad it was in the immediate aftermath and the 3.5 years of trying to get that over the line, at least it's progress.
Yeah. OK. Tom, Nikki, got to leave it there. We'll see you in an hour. Thank you very much.
And now let's catch up with the royals, because children's hospices across Britain provide a lifeline, as we know, to the families of children with life-threatening illnesses.
Now, to mark Children's Hospice Week, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge went to East Anglia's Children's Hospices site in Milford yesterday.
Now, Kate, as we know, has been their patron for 10 years. Cameron Walker has more.
Son Douglas, unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer. He actually died at home, but they sent nurses out and so on.
The impossible decision. Where does your child's life come to a close? That's the reality for parents supported by the 54 children's hospices across the UK, who provide a lifeline for families caring for seriously ill children. The theme of this year's campaign, highlighting a service that largely relies on donations, is for the children, reminding us all, according to the Duchess of Cambridge, that children's hospices can bring joy and help families spend happy times together. Kate has been royal patron of the East Anglian Children's Hospice for 10 years and visited their site in Milton yesterday with Prince William. Chief Exec Phil Gormley thinks her warm persona makes her the perfect patron.
It means a huge amount. I mean, you can see the excitement that it brought the staff, the volunteers and the children and their parents here. And it does two things, really. It's for the last 10 years really brought to public attention the issues surrounding children's palliative care, because it's a small sector. So she's brought real profile and real human personal interest to this.
What started as a respite is now relied on by families across East Anglia. The Duke and Duchess were taken on a tour of the hospice and met young patients and their families, including Henry Wright, whose son Douglas died of cancer when he was 4 years old. Henry remembers happy moments in the sensory garden.
In the early days of the treatment, when he was feeling good and he was actually in remission, we came here and we had some really good days, particularly in sort of the play areas and things, sort of running around, and they looked after us, and you've got a day. It's not a hospital environment, it's not clinical. So we've got really good memories of here.
Just 16% of the charity's funding came from governments the year before the pandemic. This year, the charity has to raise more than £10 million in donations. Having a royal patron, staff thinks, helps secure their future.
Families here make the most of their time together. Parents can be parents and not just carers. And staff believe the Duchess's decade in raising awareness means that more families understand the lifeline hospice care can provide. Cameron Walker, GB News, Cambridgeshire.
Oh, hugely difficult, isn't it, that sort of thing?
Marvellously worthwhile thing, though.
Lots
is out and about doing ever such a lot at the moment, isn't she?
Yes, she is. Mind you, there's some controversy, should I say, about their they've had their first ever joint portrait unveiled, and some people aren't happy.
Yeah, I think it's rather lovely.
I think it's fantastic.
Some people are saying that in it, William is looking very alpha male, isn't he? Very modern, but it's a sort of, I am going to be the king type stance.
Well, he is.
Well, he is, yes, fair enough. And some observers are saying Kate looks a bit sort of...
What, demure?
Yeah, a bit demure and suppliant, almost.
I mean,
the add-on.
I think whoever's saying that must be woke beyond belief, because I just think she looks like...
She looks beautiful.
Beautiful. They're just like a lovely couple posing quite naturally, I would have thought.
The painting was commissioned, apparently, by the Cambridgeshire Royal Portrait Fund as a gift to the county, where it will be exhibited. And the artist is a guy called Jamie Correth, who said it was a real privilege, and I wanted to show them in a manner where they appeared relaxed and approachable, but also elegant and dignified, and I think he's done the job.
But some people are saying he should apologise to Kate over that.
I don't think she looks sort of suppliant.
No,
as though she's not important.
It's a painting. It looks like a photograph.
Yeah, it is.
It's remarkable.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. No, let's stop. People always sort of bitch about royal portraits, don't they?
They do.
They always have something to say, and I think it must be for the artist one of the most difficult commissions because, you never know whether you're going to please anyone. But I think that looks lovely of both of them.
I do. It's absolutely sensational.
What do you think? Give us a bell. GB News at GB Views. No, the other way around. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Yeah, you're fine. You'll get there eventually.
Oh, well.
Now, of course, we like to get out and about and speak to you on things that you care about.
Well, today, on the eve of more rail strikes, our East of England reporter Ed Crawford is out and about in Suffolk to find out what's on people's minds. Hello there, Ed. Lovely to see you. Not yet sunny, I'm afraid to say. What have you got for us today?
Hello, good morning. Yes, unfortunately it's not that sunny at the moment, but it's still a lovely temperature outside. Now, on your doorstep, we like to get out and about speaking to regular people about issues that matter to them. So sometimes we go about knocking on doors, but today, or right now, I am at an outside training facility called the Health Hub, and I am joined by...
Hi, I'm Stuart, and I run the Health Hub here in Bury St Edmunds.
Fantastic. So this is a nice outdoor training facility. Can you give us a quick tour, Stu?
Yeah, sure. So we've got our outdoor rig here for training and exercise, and then an indoor area or covered area. We can do classes out here, or yoga, Pilates, things like that.
Fantastic. So during the lockdowns, there's a lot of restrictions on exercising, a lot of restrictions on everything. Was this built in response to lockdowns?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, a direct reaction to the government's guidelines at the time, which they didn't allow exercise indoors and they only allowed exercise outdoors. So, organically this kind of grew and developed, and this is what we've got today, but people love it.
Fantastic. Well, let's have a quick little walk. We've got some kettlebells here, we've got some ski ergs over there. If anyone's familiar with the gyms, those are the killer ones. Now, over here, you've got this fantastic facility where you've got rope climbs and stuff like that. So I have to ask you, Stuart, the country's going through a cost of living crisis. I know this is your outside training facility. You've got a gym inside and you've got saunas, jacuzzis, swimming pool, exercise machines. How much have you seen your electricity rise?
Yeah, it's probably gone up nearly 200% in the last year and a half.
That's a hell of a price rise, And a lot of people are saying that, during the lockdowns and the pandemic and everything, they've kind of got into a bit of a lockdown slump. Are you finding that gym membership has perked up now that sort of the pandemic's kind of eased off?
Yeah, coming out of lockdown, people, they had a real kind of thought about their health, both mental and physical. So we have seen our membership grow over that last year and a half. And we're seeing a great reaction of people loving coming up, using the facilities, loving training here, actually looking after their own mental and physical health.
Fantastic. Well, I have to ask you, Stuart, you know, this looks fantastic, but I understand HIIT classes are all the rage. That's high intensity interval training. Can you tell me, are HIIT classes popular out here?
Yeah, we run quite a lot of classes out here. A lot of them are people like them because of that community feel, group exercise. We've seen a real uplift in the people doing those classes.
So final question, can you tell me, quick advice, anyone sort of looking to get back into fitness, get rid of the lockdown slumber, what's your best fitness advice?
Just do something, start small, do something you can manage, and then it will grow from there.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a good message. You know, we've all got gone into a bit of a slumber, but it's nice to get back out and about.
Lovely stuff, Ed. Thank you. I've been getting out and about. It's quite a nice thing to do, I guess. Shed the spare tyre.
Well, it's nice when the weather's nice. I'm a fair weather person to go out. I have to have... The sunshine's been lovely the last 2 days, but not so good today, I don't think.
Oh, isn't it? I need to pay attention to the weather forecast.
Yes. Should we get it?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. It's going to start to turn more unsettled over the next 24 hours or so. There will be some sunshine but some hefty showers too, and it will start to turn fresher, particularly in the west. And the reason for this is low pressure is going to start dominating our weather pattern. Blustery showers, fresher conditions starting to move in time for the weekend. So Friday morning, quite a cloudy start across much of the UK, 1 or 2 showers as well. Best of the sunshine will be across eastern parts of England, central, southern and eastern Scotland too. But by the afternoon, the heat and humidity here will spark a few hefty showers, some thunderstorms possible. A lot of the UK will be cloudy, there'll be a few bright or sunny spells. And then into the afternoon across Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, southwest England, a band of rain, which could be heavy at times, will move in here. And turning fresher as a result, 20 or 21 Celsius. In the east, holding on to the heat and humidity, highs of 25 or 26. Through the evening, thunderstorms move away. Then this band of rain pushes north and east across the UK. Behind it, fresher conditions following, mixture of clear skies and scattered showers. So a much more comfortable night for sleeping Friday night into Saturday morning. Towns and cities holding up in double figures, but slipping into single figures in the countryside. So a bright start to Saturday morning, but there will be a mixture of showers, some of these heavy. Showers most frequent across western areas through the day. The east holding on to the driest and brightest weather, but there will be some showers here too. Perhaps some longer spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland later on in the day. And also with this low pressure nearby, we will see increasing winds, particularly through the Irish Sea, some gales developing towards Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And a fresher feeling day for all. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, perhaps 23 to 25 across southeast England. And that remains so for the weekend. We're looking at a mixture of sunny spells and showers, some of these heavy at times, and temperatures overall around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News. I'm
Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Breaking news this morning, and the chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden, resigns just hours after the Tories lose 2 by-elections.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Friday, the 24th of June. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
As always, we're live across the UK on your TV, your radio and online, so you can take us out and about with you today for all the very latest on the headlines.
Well, Oliver Dowden says he shares the distress of Conservative voters over what he calls recent events.
Meanwhile, those by-election results saw a historic win for the Lib Dems in Tiverton and Honiton.
And in a second defeat of the night for the Tories, Labour reclaimed the red wall seat of Wakefield.
In other news, the policing minister has exclusively told GB News the government is on track to deliver 20,000 extra officers by March. This, as the government says it plans to get tough on crime.
And we're on your doorstep this morning.
I'm in Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk, one of the crown jewels of Suffolk, and I'm here knocking on the doors, asking people what news is important to them.
And it hasn't happened for quite a few years, but today Glastonbury returns. Going to see the likes of Paul McCartney, Diana Ross and the Pet Shop Boys down in Somerset. And of course, our very own Stephanie Tetchy is there.
Over 100,000 music lovers are here for the greatest show on earth. The rail strikes haven't dampened people's spirits. The poor weather hasn't dampened people's spirits because people are here to party. Finally, after 3 years, everyone is back at Worthy Farm.
And she looks as though she's really enjoying herself. If you have ever been to Glastonbury and if you've got any lovely memories for us to tell us about, do get in touch, won't you? On that and actually anything that we're talking about this morning, because there's a lot of news going on, do email us gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So we start with the news that Oliver Dowden has resigned as chairman of the Conservative Party after it suffered 2 by-election defeats, saying in a letter to the Prime Minister that somebody must take responsibility.
Our political correspondent Tom Harwood is with us now, joining us from College Green, just outside Westminster. Good morning, Tom. It's amazing how quickly it all happened this morning, isn't it?
It certainly is. It almost feels like this may have been premeditated, that Oliver Dowden may have been planning this for some time, given expectations. And let's not forget the Conservatives weren't all that hopeful of holding both of these seats. They were a little bit more hopeful, speaking to many senior Conservatives this week. They're a little bit more hopeful in Tiverton than they were in Wakefield. And yet it turned out that Tiverton was an even worse result for the Conservative Party than the Wakefield result. A really tricky set of elections there for the Conservatives, and I suppose we are now on resignation watch. Will further ministers, be they cabinet or more junior, be following Oliver Dowden out the door? That's the question that hangs heavy over Westminster today. However, it may not be all that exciting down here. It remains to be seen, of course. The Prime Minister himself away in Rwanda, members of Parliament mostly back in their constituencies. Could it be that the drama begins next week as opposed to today? That remains to be seen. But some names that are floating around in terms of people keeping their eyes peeled for. We need to see what some ministers are doing, particularly perhaps Penny Mordaunt. She's a trade minister who has been fairly critical of some things the government has been doing. Also potentially Guy Opperman, another junior minister there. Some names to keep an eye on in terms of whether or not they are as critical or indeed potentially offering their resignations. Now, it has to be said that there isn't a grand expectation that that will happen, but plenty to keep our eyes peeled for.
Sorry I'm late, Tom. I was having a coffee.
OK, thank you for that. Well, we'll leave Tom there. He's been Mr. Brexit, Steve something or other.
Yeah,
is out.
Is playing silly whatsits behind him.
I mean, he's been doing that for 7 or 8 years now. I mean, what does he think he's achieving?
I'm not terribly sure. I suppose he's just disrupting, isn't he?
Disrupting. But there you go.
Yeah.
Got
there it
nothing
goes.
better to do.
Anyway, it was amazing this morning because as we were coming into work this morning, about 4 o'clock-ish, the both by-elections sort of came in within 10 minutes of
Oh, they
each
did.
other,
They were very
didn't they?
quick.
Yeah, and then within the hour, just as we were getting ready to come on air at 6, suddenly we heard that Oliver Dowden, the co-chair of the Conservative Party, had resigned. And that just sort of felt like one of those huge moments that even in Rwanda, Boris Johnson surely has to feel the effects of that, because that's important.
Well, it is. And it's interesting, as David Meller was telling us earlier on, it's when you read between the lines. In that resignation letter, he says he's going to stay loyal to the Conservative Party, not to the Prime Minister.
Not one mention of Boris Johnson in the letter. And David Meller was saying normally in a resignation letter you sort of thank the Prime Minister for, years of working together, or you say something that sort of is something about your allegiance, or at least your thanks for years of loyalty or whatever. Not one word like that,
No.
which David Meller said was very, very important. It was almost more important what was left out of the letter than what was in it.
Our supporters are distressed and disappointed by recent events. I share their feelings. We cannot carry on with business as usual. Well, what does that tell you?
It wasn't a letter that said, after such terrible defeats in the by-elections, I feel I need to resign. It was saying, after recent events. So there you go.
Anyway, let us know what you think about that one. Of course, those by-election results are actually, well, one in particular, pretty crucial. But really, it's the Tiverton and Honiton result. The Lib Dems have won that, but the reason it's so important is it's been Tory forever. And the swing has been absolutely huge. A dramatic swing of almost 30% from the Tories saw the Lib Dems secure a majority of over 6,000. It's a seat that was created 25 years ago, though it has been with different boundaries. It's been there since the 1920s, and Tory since the 1920s.
And then if you look to Wakefield, Labour reclaimed what is known as a Red Wall constituency. Simon Lightwood was elected there with a majority of 4,925, which is a swing of 12.7 from the Tories.
Yeah, we'll talk to Anna Riley in Wakefield shortly. First, let's go to Jeff Moody, who's in Tiverton and Honiton. Look, Jeff, in terms of just how damaging this is for the Conservative Party, I mean, this is huge, the swing of this scale.
Absolutely huge. I mean, as you were saying, this has been a safe Conservative area for the last 100 years. Since 1997, the constituency has voted Conservative, but way, way before that, it's always been dyed-in-the-wool Conservative. Anne, you were asking what the statue is behind me. It's Edward VII, and it actually says on the statue, Edward the Peacemaker. Well, the people of Tiverton may well have made their peace with the way they voted, but the message that they're sending through to Westminster is anything but peaceful. The real sense on the streets here this morning that something fundamental has changed. In the last few minutes, we've just heard from the Liberal Democrat campaign office. They're actually planning to meet members of the press and members of the public just behind me at the clock tower there at 11 o'clock. And they're then going to go on a massive victory parade through Tiverton. So we will be there at 11. We will be live at 11, hopefully talking to Sir Ed Davey, who is in town, as well as the Britain's newest MP, Richard Ford. So that's something to bear in mind to watch at 11 o'clock this morning. Richard Ford, a very popular figure locally. He's an ex-army major. He's lived in the area for many, many years. He's a very personable man, and that is part of what's happened here. He's been on the streets a lot, he's got to know a lot of people, and he's been a very friendly, personable, approachable character. And people here, perhaps unfairly, depending on your views, comparing that to Boris Johnson and comparing that, obviously, to Neil Parish, the MP that resigned from here under particularly unsavoury circumstances, watching pornography in the House of Commons. You know, the optics of that aren't particularly good and don't sit well in what was a staunch, safe Conservative seat here. So Ed Davey is saying this morning, it's time Boris Johnson goes. He has to look at this and go. Boris Johnson has commented from Rwanda this morning, and he said, look, he is listening, but he has no intention of going. But considering the scale, as you said, Stephen, the scale of that defeat here, the question is how much longer can he really carry on?
OK, Jeff, thank you.
Yes, thanks very much indeed, Jeff, and thanks for finding out about the statue, the peacemaker, Edward VI, did you say? Anyway, Anna Riley is in Wakefield for us now. It's called a Red Wall constituency that was probably lent to Boris Johnson, now been seized back by Labour, Anna.
Good morning. Yes, that's right, Anne. It was the first time in 80 years in 2019 that the Tories got in here with a majority of over 3,000, but that's completely changed in this by-election. NHS worker Simon Lightwood, he has got a majority of 4,925 and has won this seat. There was a turnout of 39.1% in Wakefield. Conservatives came in second place. That was followed by Independent Akif Akbar in third and the Yorkshire Party in fourth. The Greens were fifth here, Reform sixth, and in contrast to Honiton and Tiverton, the Lib Dems were pushed to sixth place here. There was a lot of candidates as well vying for this seat, 15 of them. Now, speaking after the result, Simon Lightwood was quite scathing towards Boris Johnson. He said, Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated. Your government has no ideas, no plan to address big issues facing our country. He said that he felt absolutely over the moon about the result, and he said that the Labour Party in this area focused on the cost of living. And he said that people wanted a fresh start for Wakefield and that they would be rebuilding the Red Wall going forward and that Labour will be pushing forward in this area. He again said that the big issues here were the cost of living and that a lot of people were angry with the Prime Minister here over Partygate. I've been speaking to people this morning and they're saying it is no surprise that Labour got in here, but they're saying now they want Simon Lightwood to focus on the big issues for the area, cost of living, and they also want to see investment in this area as well. The high street's full of empty shops. They want to see it revigorated, and I'll be providing updates throughout the day from what people are saying here in Wakefield with those results.
Yeah, look forward to it. Anna, thanks very much indeed. Look, it's fascinating getting in touch on these by-election issues. Bob, morning, Bob. I don't know, Bob, if you're right on this or not. He says these by-election results are a contradiction. I believe both constituencies voted to leave the EU, and both the Lib Dems and Labour are intrinsically Remain parties. So come a general election, the Tory Brexiteers will turn out and vote. But is Brexit not done now, Bob, pretty much?
Surely we can't go back. Oh, can you imagine trying to get anyone trying to go back?
Because, I mean, the last general election, 2019, it was the Brexit election. Wasn't it? It was
and then everything
the
turned out differently, didn't it?
But I don't know if the next general election will be, if Brexit is going to be a big issue, Bob. I don't know. Maybe you're right.
It's interesting that's also a case where whether or not people wish to criticise Boris Johnson, because a lot of people getting in touch saying no other Prime Minister has ever had to face the sort of things that came his way. He thought he was going to lead a government that was going to be all about Brexit, really, and maybe levelling up as well, and a few other things that he wanted to do. Suddenly, there comes a worldwide epidemic. Carol says no other Prime Minister has had to face the chaos that Boris faced on becoming Prime Minister. COVID brought the world to its knees. How about we go after China for compensation? Nobody else could do the job, especially from the opposition.
Keith echoes that. Keith Foreman says, I wonder how many other Prime Ministers would have dealt with the events of the last few years. Well, no idea.
No.
Don't know.
Don't know. Is it better the devil you know now? Nigel from Luton says there are millions of Boris supporters and I am one. It's the media with the large hammer that keep beating him. Is it the media's fault? Partygate isn't the media's fault, is it? Those two by-elections, not the media's fault, is it? Aren't we just reflecting what everybody's thinking? people are thinking.
Yeah, possibly. Keith says, it saddens me to see the hyenas circling around these by-election defeats. The turnouts were low, plus there was tactical voting. I will stay loyal to Boris for all his flaws. He's only human.
But why? Can you say why you would stay loyal to him now? As he is only human isn't enough. I mean, Keir Starmer's only human. Why would you stay loyal to Boris now? GB Views at gbnews.uk.
It's an interesting
There's something about him, isn't there? That people love.
Look, he was an election winner in 2019 because of Brexit. He was the only one who stood up and said, "You voted for this. I'm just going to sort it out." Like a bull in a china shop, he sorted it out. Now, what is the big issue going to be?
You look at the headlines in today's newspapers, the front pages of The Guardian. Airport staff vote to strike as threat of disruption widens. The Metro, terminal chaos. I mean, the country is in disarray, isn't it?
And we have got...
whose fault is it?
This cost of living crisis. Interestingly, the Wakefield thingy, Lightfoot, Andrew Lightfoot, who's just won in Wakefield, said... that it was the Tory cost of living crisis. Well, that's unfair, I think, because this cost of living crisis is global.
Yeah.
However, you know, there is a big cost of living crisis, and the Prime Minister has not tackled it in the same... You know, he's not gone like a bull in a china shop at that, has he? I mean, he might have different restraints, but that is what people are crying out for now. So perhaps this is going to have to force his hand.
I wonder if he gets it. Do you think he gets it? GB Views, gbnews.uk.
Let's just recap on our main news this morning. And Boris Johnson has thanked Oliver Dowden after he resigned as Tory party co-chairman following double by-election defeats.
Yes, because in an open letter to the Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden just hours ago wrote, "Yesterday's parliamentary by-elections are the latest in a run of very poor results for our party. We cannot carry on with business as usual. Somebody must take responsibility, and I have concluded that in these circumstances it would not be right for me to remain in office." Speaking in Rwanda, Boris Johnson acknowledged Oliver Dowden's concerns.
Absolutely true that we've had some tough by-election results, and they've been, I think, a reflection of a lot of things, but we've got to recognise that voters are going through a tough time at the moment, and I think that as a government, I've got to listen to what people are saying, and in particular to the difficulties people are facing over the cost of living, which is, I think, for most people, the number one issue.
There's some flashing images for you here, so just be wary. The Lib Dems overturned a 24,000 Tory majority to win in Tiverton and Honiton, while Labour reclaimed the Red Wall Wakefield seat in West Yorkshire. Labour's Simon Lightwood and the Lib Dems' Richard Ford used their acceptance speeches to call for Boris Johnson to resign.
Tonight, the people of Wakefield have spoken on behalf of the British people. They have said unreservedly, Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated.
Every day, Boris Johnson clings to office. He brings further shame, chaos, and neglect.
EU leaders have accepted Ukraine and Moldova as membership candidates of the European Union. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has welcomed the decision, describing it as a victory.
Downing Street says British Airways needs to draw up contingency plans to minimise strike disruption this summer. The company says it's extremely disappointed that workers at Heathrow, including check-in staff, have voted in favour by 95% of industrial action in a dispute over pay.
And energy-related scams are on the rise as households face soaring bills at home. New figures from Action Fraud show that scams in the first quarter of this year were up 10% from 2021. Now, fraudsters have been caught posing as an energy supplier and gaining bank details by inviting customers to claim refunds.
Yes, I did get that Labour MP's name very wrong. And
Simon.
Andrew Lightfoot,
yeah.
I said, and it was Simon Lightwood.
But, yeah.
But
we,
aren't surnames funny though?
Lightwood, yes.
I once knew a reporter, I can't think of her first name now, but Andrea, so Pine Coffin.
Oh, wait, but That's related to a trade, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I find the derivation of surnames absolutely fascinating, yeah.
Wow. Yours is sparkly.
Yeah, except it's not. It comes from the dye-mongering, DYE, really, apparently. If you look hard enough back, diamonds, somewhere along the line, some very crafty dye-mongerer decided it would be more sexy to change it to DIAMOND, but it's not. It's to do with the dyeing industry, apparently. Oh. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Oh, you've just lost your
twinkle. Sorry about that. But yeah, the derivation, I mean, what's a Dixon?
Son of Dick, I imagine.
Oh, it probably... Oh, it is, of course it is. Yeah. And somewhere along the line, they put an X in instead of the CKS.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Isn't it? I always think it's fascinating.
I know. I occasionally, you notice certain names and you think, ooh, I would never have thought of that. You know, have you ever tried writing a novel?
No.
But you write poetry.
I write poetry. My book is out available. Thank you.
Oh. But I suppose not in poetry, you don't use names particularly.
Not really, no.
Because when I've tried writing, I'm halfway through the novel, you know, as most people are, I think. But making up names is really fascinating because you think, and then you think, no, that's not right, that sounds made up. And then you come across people with real names. I always watch the credits at the end of movies.
Oh, it's fascinating,
to see interesting names. Love it.
But isn't it funny how names change? Because if you look at, like, Dickensian novels that you may have sort of read at school and things...
Oh, they're very trade-related or...
Yeah. I mean, they're extraordinary
weird,
names that you just don't get nowadays, but they must have been names of the time, sort of thing. I don't know, it's just interesting, isn't it? But anyway, Simon Lightwood.
Lightwood. We'll get to know him, I guess.
I remember that now, yes.
Yeah.
We'll get him on the programme at some point. Look, lots more still to come for you, including a look at what's going on at Heathrow. Could strike action affect your holiday? Very possibly.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. It's going to start to turn more unsettled over the next 24 hours or so. There will be some sunshine, but some hefty showers too, and it will start to turn fresher, particularly in the west. And the reason for this is low pressure is going to start dominating our weather pattern. Blustery showers, fresher conditions starting to move in time for the weekend. So Friday morning, quite a cloudy start across much of the UK, 1 or 2 showers as well. Best of the sunshine will be across eastern parts of England, central, southern and eastern Scotland too. But by the afternoon, the heat and humidity here will spark a few hefty showers, some thunderstorms possible. A lot of the UK will be cloudy, there'll be a few bright or sunny spells. And then into the afternoon across Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, southwest England, a band of rain, which could be heavy at times, will move in here. And turning fresher as a result, 20 or 21 Celsius. In the east, holding on to the heat and humidity, highs of 25 or 26. Through the evening, thunderstorms move away. Then this band of rain pushes north and east across the UK. Behind it, fresher conditions following, mixture of clear skies and scattered showers. So a much more comfortable night for sleeping Friday night into Saturday morning. Towns and cities holding up in double figures, but slipping into single figures in the countryside. So a bright start to Saturday morning, but there will be a mixture of showers, some of these heavy. Showers most frequent across western areas through the day. The east holding on to the driest and brightest weather, but there will be some showers here too. Perhaps some longer spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland later on in the day. And also with this low pressure nearby, we will see increasing winds, particularly through the Irish Sea, some gales developing towards Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And a fresher feeling day for all. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, perhaps 23 to 25 across southeast England. And that remains so for the weekend. We're looking at a mixture of sunny spells and showers, some of these heavy at times, and temperatures overall around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
.25. Morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, holiday hopes for thousands of families could be shattered, I'm afraid to tell you, after British Airways staff at Heathrow Airport voted yesterday to go on strike, a move that may lead to even more airport chaos.
Yeah, BA staff have reportedly rejected a 10% pay rise, and walkouts could happen as early as next month. Paul Hawkins is at Heathrow for us this morning. What can you tell us, Paul?
Yeah, hi Stephen. This dispute essentially by 700 staff at BA and also members of the GMB union and Unite deciding that they do want to strike over the summer. We're not sure when the dates will be. You have to give by law 2 weeks notice to your employer if you're going to take industrial action. That takes us to July the 8th. That will be the first weekend of summer holidays for public schools. So that's when the industrial action could take place. They're unhappy because BA effectively brought in a 10% pay cut during the pandemic for these ground staff and check-in staff, most of whom are female, most of whom are low paid according to the union. And now these members of staff are saying, look, we want that 10% pay cut reinstated. BA have offered a 10% bonus, a one-off bonus. They're saying that's all that they can afford. They've lost £4 billion during the pandemic, so that they can only afford a one-off 10% bonus. But they're saying, no, we want the 10% bonus and we want our pay reinstated by 10%. We can speak now to travel expert and owner of 8-Phase Consultancy, Bex Dedman. Bex,
good morning.
Morning to you. First of all, do you have some sympathy with the staff of British Airways that have voted to strike?
I have a lot of sympathy for them. I think this is what coming out of unprecedented times looks like. None of us knew what was going to happen. But these guys have held on. Some of them will have been furloughed, some of them will have been made redundant, and some of them will have been re-employed. And they've been really messed around for the last couple of years, just generally. But for those guys that have held on and taken pay cuts and believed in their organisation, the cost of living is going up around us. It's not fair for these guys still to be on reduced pay when actually the executives are getting a full pay now. These are the guys on the ground dealing with people every single day. They're the people that your customers see. And yeah, they just need to be treated better.
And it's been a difficult time, especially, I mean, for the whole airline industry, but especially for British Airways. They've had to deal with IT problems, staff shortages, and these staff that are striking have borne the brunt of that.
Exactly. So you can imagine if you're the one that's front line and a customer's had issues at check-in or they've had an issue with something else, you're the ones that are going to deal with that. It's not the guys at the top or the ladies at the top. It's these guys, and quite frankly, sometimes they're getting paid below the minimum wage. If cost of living is rising in the way that it is, we're asking the people that serve our people to live beyond their means, to go into debt, to try and keep a job. Why would people do that? This is why people are leaving our industry. We've got to reinvent it, and we've got to start thinking differently.
How does the industry reinvent itself, and particularly British Airways, in your opinion?
I really honestly believe that the way that there's a plane coming up right now behind us, so just to prove the point. Look, it's really difficult. Our industry, it takes a lot of learning about our industry to kind of understand how that it works. But if you can imagine, travel is always sold in advance. in the hope, in the promise that actually that's going to happen. But there's a lot of moving parts that happen between that sale and actually the flight taking place, and things can happen. The problem is when flights get cancelled, that affects the whole chain. It affects the reputation of the people that have sold the tickets, it affects the airline, but obviously it affects the travellers who then think, I'm going to book somewhere else next time, or actually, as they're doing now, I'm not going to book at all. I'm not going to take this risk anymore. We've got to start making us earn money. The commercial models need to change, and we need to look at what it takes to run these businesses, and actually then what money we need how money needs to be made in order to do that. Because at the moment, these guys are on the back of the worst time that we've ever known as travel companies. They've got no reserves left. So I do feel for them as well. You know, it's a really difficult situation. They've got no reserves left. They are selling tickets in order to pay for the operations of their business. When those tickets then don't happen, they've got to refund that money. So we're just in this constant chicken and egg situation until they've built up some reserves.
It needs a bit of a revolution.
It needs a total revolution. But it's about, for me, it's about putting your people first. If you get this wrong, if you do not look after your staff on the front line, you don't have a company.
Yeah.
That's what people have got to start understanding.
BA would say it is looking after its staff. It says it's in an extremely challenging environment, losses of more than 4 billion. They've made an offer of a 10% payment, which was accepted by the majority of colleagues. And it says that, you know, they've got to work together as a team with the unions.
But isn't it about leadership honouring that as well? So, you know, when I was in this position, my entire company took a pay cut, and I'm sure they did at the time. But is it fair that the executives are back up to full pay and their workers aren't? If we're all a team, surely we're all doing it at the same time, and certainly that's what I would be talking about.
We'll have to leave it there, but Bex, thank you. Bex Dedman there from 8 Phase Consulting. She's a travel expert. BA, for their part, they say that actually less than half of the number of staff employed by them at Heathrow will be going on strike. They say they're going to bring in management to deal with those gaps where the strikes occur, and that they do have plans in place to mitigate the impact. And as they said, they're committed to finding a solution with the unions, but we're waiting for dates on those strikes, which we reckon will be sort of around the start to mid-July.
OK, Paul, thank you.
Eek. Yeah. Thanks very much. Paul sounds a bit blowy there. The Daily Telegraph always has a front page cartoon by Matt, who's usually brilliant. And you know how hairdressers, are meant to always sit you down and start doing your hair, and then they ask you about your holidays.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Well, they've got a picture of a lady sitting down having her hair done, and the hairdresser's saying to her, have you had any nice holiday plans ruined recently?
That's about the sum of it, isn't it?
It really is, isn't it?
Now, let's show you this picture of, it's the first official portrait of William and Kate. It was unveiled yesterday. It's huge. It's about 12 feet tall. Absolutely massive thing. In the papers this morning, I think it's in The Guardian or something, saying that the artist should apologise to Kate. She needs an apology. It's a disgrace because she's looking sort of subservient almost to William.
Yeah, William is there striking a very alpha male pose, looks very relaxed but actually also authoritative, and Kate is just sort of cuddling up to him slightly. And critics say it's making her look, I don't know, suppliant to him. Just not quite as important as him. He is the future king.
Yes.
That might be overdoing it, really. I think she just looks lovely.
I think it's a fantastic picture. Anyway, it's something on which me and Anne agree, and you
I think so, yeah. Maureen says there's only one word for the portrait of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge: brilliant. I always look forward to the programme. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah, Olwyn says the royal portrait is fabulous. However, I think looking at it, if he'd painted William turned just slightly towards Kate, he would look just a tad more relaxed and a little less flat. Hey-ho, have a lovely day. That's Olwyn in Lincolnshire.
Actually, I think you're probably right there. If he was just turned a little bit more towards Kate, instead of just sort of... He could almost be standing there on his own. I think that's what the critics say. And it just looks as though Kate has just sort of sidled up to him. If he was just acknowledging her a little bit more in his stance. Pamela says, hi, Stephen and Anne. The portrait of Prince William and Kate is beautiful. I love the casual pose of William with his hand in his pocket and Kate looking as beautiful as ever. As if anything, I think it's a portrait of two people relaxed and in love. All the critics are probably Republicans who need to crawl back under the stones that they came from.
Yes. David says, I think Kate looks like she's in love with her husband. What's wrong with that?
True.
Absolutely nothing. Quick one from Doreen saying the portrait of Catherine and William is wonderful.
She is looking away from him, but she's sort of looking towards the painter, I think, saying, isn't he gorgeous?
Well, they're both looking in the same direction, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're both looking at
to
a
the
point.
future?
I just think it's stunning.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's really stunning.
How the artist got her dress, because she's in. If you're listening on the radio, I do apologise, but she's wearing a sort of silky dress, and he's got the light coming off the silk, absolutely amazingly. Aren't artists clever?
And it looks like a photograph.
It does. It is. It's brilliant.
Love it.
Apparently, it was commissioned by the Cambridge something or other, Cambridgeshire Portrait Society, and it will be displayed in Cambridgeshire.
I'd go and see that.
Yeah, I think. And how, you said it was
Cambridge.
big, sort of life size.
It's big. No, it's bigger. There's a picture of them two stood in front of it, and it's. I mean, it must be what 10, 12 feet tall or something. So it's bigger than life size. It's absolutely enormous, but stunning. The critics, I think, don't know what they're on about.
Have you got
That's
a painting of
critics for
yourself
you.
at home?
No. Have you?
Neither. No. But I did go to somebody's home once, a TV presenter, who I will not name. She had enormous pictures of herself all over the place.
Really?
Yeah. Well, she'd obviously sat for portraits. And...
I shall find out the break. We've got plenty more to come, including our reporter Ed Crawford. Could he be on your doorstep this morning? Perhaps.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning to you. It is 8:38. Just a quick one on the Heathrow and the strikers, because we just were down at Heathrow with Paul. Mark's been in touch saying they've been sitting on their backsides being paid for the last 2 years. Now they decide to strike and cause misery for millions. I would have agreed with you, Mark, if we hadn't heard from that lady that everyone across BA was given a 10% pay cut during the pandemic, and now the bosses have given themselves that 10% back, but not the other workers.
Yeah, Bill says that. I think we all deserve a pay increase. What I can't understand is why the CEOs think they should get a pay rise and their staff none.
That's something I do have an issue with. But anyway, let us know what you think. It's up to you. It's all about you, what your thoughts are.
Should we take a look at today's front pages quickly? The Mail is reporting on the Rwanda story, saying Boris has urged critics to keep an open mind on the policy. That's ahead of his meeting with one critic, particularly Prince Charles.
The Express has an exclusive on a Strasbourg judge that has criticised the secrecy with which the European Court of Human Rights conducted itself over the Rwanda migrant flight ruling.
The Guardian reports that airport staff are set to vote on that strike action that we were talking about as the threat of disruption to life in the UK widens.
The drive for green fuel made from wheat and maize is to be relaxed because the PM wants to use it for growing food instead. The Telegraph says that could affect our net zero pledge.
And The Sun says the Queen is back in the saddle. She's riding again after a year of being told to quit because of her mobility issues.
Let's go through those papers in a bit more detail with editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater, and the author, Nikki Hodgson. Morning, you two.
Morning.
Last run out of the day, you can relax. The Times, Tom, looking at Ukraine and the fact it is now sort of officially starting the process of joining the EU.
Yes, so earlier this week we saw the EU kind of open the door to that process, to Ukraine becoming an EU member. This story is about essentially North Macedonia and Albania saying, don't count on it happening anytime soon. They've been kind of stuck in the waiting room for some time, despite meeting what often are quite tricky kind of criteria in order to get into the European Union. Their membership has been blocked by Bulgaria, and just kind of pointing out that the politics of the European Union are very fraught. You know, there's all kinds of different interests going on. There are national vetoes over new members. And I think it just underlines the fact that a lot of that ceremony that they held earlier this week, it was basically just a bit of a virtue signal. I don't think anyone really expects Ukraine to join anytime soon. And I think it's an attempt to just cover over the fact that a lot of EU leading member states have not had a very good war, if we're going to put it that bluntly. They have been seen to be a little bit too flat-footed at best, nervous about coming to Ukraine's defence, and in some cases quite conciliatory with Russia. So I think this just underlines the fact that that was just one big virtue signal, really, and the EU trying to claw back some respectability on the Ukraine issue at this point.
You don't see it as a major step forward?
I just would be amazed if it ever happened for all kinds of different reasons, not least because of... also, I wonder if Ukraine would be an easy fit, given the fact that they've, will have gone to war to defend their national sovereignty. It's going to be a difficult situation where you've got an EU that is looking to kind of ever centralise more. It could not be an easy relationship.
So I can understand why they want to feel a bit more protected.
100%.
Perhaps. I can understand that position, but...
Nikki, on to a subject which actually will be very concerning to a lot of women. There's going to be a shortage of HRT patches.
Well, actually, this is the remedy. So there has been a shortage. Caroline Noakes, who is the Conservative MP and chair of the Commons Women and Equality Select Committee, has been campaigning to sort out supply chain issues with HRT products. And so now, apparently, a new factory is going to be making the gel, in particular, it's called Estrogel, which has been in short supply. So actually, what it is, it's a good news story for HRT, because we've had weeks now, we've covered it on this show, actually, about the supply chain issue. So finally, it's not just seen as a lifestyle medication anymore. So,
well, no.
Yeah. I mean, we know it isn't.
Yeah, no, it was, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's good news, yeah.
Yeah, that is good news. Nice to have good news.
Well, it is good news, but if you're a fella, just be a bit careful, because you don't want to be rubbing in your Voltarol when you get up in the morning, do you, into your bad joints and realise you picked up the wrong tube.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that was a worry.
Can you imagine?
Is that a concern?
Voltarol. Well, it's like when you sort of grab the hairspray and spray under your arms by mistake and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, but I think women who have HRT probably keep it in their own drawer, don't you think?
I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out
absolutely.
there.
It's trying to be
another thing for people to worry about, Stephen.
I can imagine it being a Daily Star headline in 12 months.
Oh, absolutely, it will be.
My knee pain didn't improve, but my cup size has got 3 times bigger, says John Smith.
Oh, stop it. Look, if you thought that was ridiculous, the next story is even worse, Tom, about pigeons.
Yes, Brexit to Pexit. I'm starting to...
love it.
I regret my leave vote. No, so essentially, as a result of Brexit, apparently, in order to take part in pigeon racing across the Channel, each pigeon needs a kind of veterinary certificate in order to take part. So the pigeon fancier lobby are very upset about this, pointing out that you need a vet at each race entry point. So it's just this kind of absurd red tape.
That can't be true. Is it April the 1st today? It can't be true.
It makes you wonder, but apparently it's something that just wasn't dealt with over the course of the Brexit process, and it's something that is, again, raging.
All these problems that are coming out.
It's Brexit.
Why did we do this?
So pigeon racing that goes across the Channel, each pigeon is going to have a health certificate.
Surely, a lot of...
But pigeons...
What about the pigeons
fly around
that fly on their own?
Yes.
they're going to be shot down.
So I'm a freelance pigeon.
You could be a freelance pigeon and get away with it.
Yeah.
It's like they're hiring mercenaries, weren't they?
I mean, when you think in World War I, we used pigeons.
Yes,
I think we
carrier
did even in
pigeons.
World War II, didn't we?
We did.
To take messages from the trenches and fly them back home.
But this is the EU, isn't it?
This is how far we've come.
This is the EU. They've got a rule for everything, even if it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, well...
Square bananas all over again.
Honestly, the
main reason we
says it all. I'm saying nothing political.
No, but you can just imagine, can't
imagine
you?
what's going through my head
Some
right now.
French vet saying, I'm sorry. If you want to fly your pigeon across the channel, it will need a certificate hung around its neck, wherever.
Honestly.
Will it be asked to present this certificate at some
Well,
point?
exactly.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to put a stop-off point in the middle of the channel. On you go. The Murdoch... Mr Murdoch is getting divorced again.
I mean, I kind of admire the man who says at 91, you know what, this isn't working, I need something different. I guess it's quite optimistic, isn't it, thinking that, you know, there's more to come after that
But this is, of course, to the world-famous Jerry Hall.
This is to the world-famous Jerry Hall, but apparently it's very mutual and, you know, as people do, they've fallen out. I mean, maybe it's the thing that as you get older, you get less tolerant. So you just, you know, if it isn't working, you just think, well, why should I waste the next 3 years of my life or whatever?
We know that his last wife signed a prenup, so there was only a limited amount that she got. What do we know of what Jerry might be getting?
Well, apparently there's a prenup again, because I was just thinking, if you were one of Murdoch's children, wouldn't you be like, Dad, can't you just stay married to this one? Come on. But apparently there is a prenup, but they've got a vast property portfolio, which will need dividing and probably selling. So
all the headlines are saying
simple.
that she may get £10 million a year plus a private jet.
Yes, it's about upkeeping her lifestyle. So
Yes.
she won't get a lump sum, but whatever lifestyle she's now gotten used to, which will probably be quite opulent, that will be
thought so.
maintained.
Yeah.
I think she's probably earned it.
Yes, I would think so too, actually. Oh, they're amazing. I mean, it was quite a stunning wedding at the time because everybody thought he was old then, but he's still going strong.
Well, he's always been old, hasn't he? That's as far as I can remember.
Apparently, he is still a workaholic, whereas Jerry likes a lazier lifestyle now. And you know, she likes her own friends and everything. But we don't hear what has actually caused the split. But clearly, they've decided that enough's enough.
Look at James with the glasses on there. James were like forcing a smile out when his dad was getting married.
Oh, what was the phrase that an onlooker said, that she had found that she was in Succession, the well-known Sky Atlantic thing about, basically based on the Murdochs.
Based on the Murdochs, yeah.
She found she was in Succession when actually what she wanted to be in was Ab Fab.
And she'll now be able to be an Ab Fab, according to her own.
The Ab Fab
private income.
Well, with best part of £1 million a month, why not? GCSEs are getting a bit woke, Tom, according to the Mail.
Yes, so this is Nadeem Zahawi, the Education Secretary, hitting back at this exam board, OCR, for dropping, amongst other poets, Philip Larkin, as well as Wilfred Owen, and it's all part of this boost for diversity, essentially, so wanting to bring in more, as the story says here, poets of colour and disabled and LGBTQ plus voices. I think one of the things that's, you know, aside from everything else that really irritates me about these kinds of stories is this idea that the assumption almost being that, say, black British students or British Asian students can't relate to people like Philip Larkin or can't relate to people like Wilfred Owen, essentially because of the colour of their skin. It seemed like a really anti-education, anti-universal, kind of slightly racist idea. And Nadeem Zahawi makes the point when he first came to this country, obviously he's Iraqi Kurdish, it was through learning English literature and some of these quite canonical works that he came to better understand his new home. And I think you're denying that experience to a lot of people by, again, just wanting to constantly update these things. I understand, you know, the canon is never set. You're going to want to change it. You're going to want to adapt it and all the rest of it. But it seems to often be bringing in quite contemporary people as well, which, again, seems to just come at the cost of that education for quite unpleasant reasons, in my view.
And Wilfred Owen was gay anyway. So why isn't that interesting to explore? I don't know, I studied him at A-level and absolutely adored him.
Me too.
And I'm bisexual, so I see him as part of, you know, the family. So why can't that be one of the elements?
I know. What stuns you is who are these people who sit down and make these decisions, and why don't they hear themselves making such decisions and thinking, I am being a bit over the top here, I'm being a bit woke?
It's just the direction of travel, unfortunately. You know, it almost seems like it doesn't matter what the government says about it. It doesn't matter what you know, society in general says about it. These things just kind of continue on.
I suppose they would say. I suppose they would say, in their defence, they might say, yes, we need to be inclusive. Well, we would all support that one, but in order to draw up a timetable, an agenda. No, I don't mean that. What do I mean?
A portfolio of
a what?
Syllabus.
Yeah, in order to draw up a syllabus, exactly, you can only have so many things. So it being inclusive means you have to actually push some things out. Yeah?
Yeah.
But I don't, I mean, I'm just putting that forward as a view, but I don't think it myself. I really can't, no.
I just find it very, very odd, all that sort of thing. It's like the new Pride stamps that have been released by the post office. Full of cartoony things of men with fairy wings on and things, and that's all.
Yeah.
What's that meant to be? How's that inclusive?
It's a lot. It's very stereotyping.
It's just silly.
Give me a stamp of Alan Turing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
Of a hero,
and
yeah.
great, not some cartoon of someone looking...
Quite literally a fairy.
Yeah.
I don't know who they think they're helping with that.
So have we got time for the story about cheese?
Oh, let's...
Very quickly,
Very
Nikki.
short. I will tell you, vegan cheese is really bad for you. The end. So apparently you should only eat vegan cheese if you actually are vegan and craving cheese, but it's got no good nutritional value. It's really, really bad for you. So only have it if you're craving cheese.
What's it made of?
It depends. Random proteins, but there's lots of fat in it, more fat than regular cheese in some of them. So, yeah, it's not healthy, basically.
Right. Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, if you are vegan and you want a bit of cheese, fair enough, but for the rest of us...
Stick with your Stilton.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Stilton on toast.
Oh.
Melted Stilton is
best.
lovely.
Is it? I've never tried that.
Oh, yeah, so good.
Yeah. There you go. Nikki, Tom...
Thank you very much.
You can go now. Thank you very much.
We're going to work, we've just got to say. We are going to our other jobs now.
You?
Yeah.
You have other jobs?
I know, it's appalling, isn't it?
Well, everyone just stopped at 9:30. Who knew? Who knew? There you go. Now, it's time for On Your Doorstep. Today, on the eve, shouldn't be smiling, on the eve of weekend rail strikes. So, our East of England reporter, Ed Crawford, is out and about in Bury St Edmunds. Ed, who are you talking to this hour?
Hi, good morning. I've been speaking to lots of interesting people this morning. We've spoken to a restaurateur and a gym owner, and now I'm here at Lacey Scott's auction house because on the doorstep we like to get out and about and we like to speak to real people about issues that are impacting them. So let's knock on the door and see who's here. Hello, good morning. You're live on GBNews. May I ask who you are? Can you introduce yourself to the camera?
My name's Ed Crichton of Lacey Scott Night Auctioneers. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, take a walk with me, Ed, because I understand some people are dropping some stuff off. What is happening today? I understand you're getting prepared for a big day.
Today we've got a toys and model sale. It's the largest one-day toy and model sale in the UK. We have them 6 times a year, 2,000 lots, tens of thousands of toys, from the late Victorian times right up to Game Boys and toys that, you know, into the early 2000s. Yeah.
So I understand at the moment the UK's got a bit of a rail strike going on, bit of a pickle for people. Is that going to impact your business much? Or are people, is it true that there's a trend in people doing online auctioning now more?
What we've seen since the start of the pandemic is pre-pandemic about 40% of lots sold online. Now it's about 70-75%. Most people like to bid from home. The other thing is the cost of fuel means that a lot of people, they don't want to travel 50, 100 miles to Bury St Edmunds, however far it is, when they can bid online and we can ship everything to them, which is what is happening more and more. Yeah.
Well, one of your clients has kindly parked their car and they are dropping off. So this looks like a very cool retro Lego set, and we've got every British kid knows a good bit of Airfix. Here we've got the Lancaster. Personally, I was always a big fan of the Spitfire and Stukas. They were always classic. Is there good money in the retro toys?
Very much so. I like the Lancaster because my grandfather was a navigator in a Lancaster in the war. But Airfix kits, yeah, are very collectible, so long as they haven't been assembled. As soon as they've been assembled, all the value goes out of them. But the early kits are very collectible. Lego is becoming increasingly collectible. We have some very early Lego in today's sale. Early full sets, very small sets that could make £2,000 or £3,000 a set. And these are pressed out bits of plastic, so it goes to show how strong the market is. But people love to collect what they grew up with. Yeah.
So essentially the auction industry is quite a green industry because you're recycling things, you're upcycling things. That's pretty fair, isn't it?
Everything we sell is at least second-hand, and if we sell a Georgian chest of drawers, it may have served 10 generations, if not more. It's incredibly green. We have a saying in our business, invest in the future, recycle the past, and we're very proud of it. We're a very green business.
Love it. Well, we're all into green energy at the moment. It's one of the current trends in the world. And yeah, it's good. And hopefully that lessens the sort of impact of the cost of living crisis for some people.
We hope so. We're still not immune for it. Shipping costs, a lot of our buyers want things shipped. A lot of our buyers are overseas. Shipping costs have gone up. Fuel costs. Running a business is becoming increasingly expensive, and noticeably so. But we're probably one of the luckier industries. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you luck today, and if anybody's out and about and fancies a good auction, pop on down, and yeah, have a great day, everyone.
Lovely stuff, Ed. Thank you. Oh, we had some
right,
else to
thank
say.
you,
Sorry,
guys.
Thanks, Ed. Oh, dear. Do you think it is going to be a nice day today? I hope so.
Medium, sunny, but lots of cloud as well.
Yeah.
But as long as it is definitely warmer there at the moment, anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I might have to go out and do a spot of gardening.
Oh yes, no, not a bad thing. How long? Oh, we've got 45 seconds left. So I can just say what Adrian said on this striking issue, because obviously it's dominating our lives at the minute, isn't it? On top of everything else that's going on. Heathrow, British Airways workers are going to strike. Adrian says it's the scene for BAA. That's the airport authority. They cut wages by 10% and got rid of staff, and they're now desperate for staff. You can expect them to strike as well.
Yeah, Alison says, unlike the train strikes, I'm in support of BA workers. The difference is that BA workers aren't asking for a pay rise. They just want their original pay reinstated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the issue, isn't it? GBViews at gbnews.uk. Would love to hear from you, and we're going to take you through all the developing stories in a couple of minutes.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. It's going to start to turn more unsettled over the next 24 hours or so. There will be some sunshine but some hefty showers too, and it will start to turn fresher, particularly in the west. And the reason for this is low pressure is going to start dominating our weather pattern. Blustery showers, fresher conditions starting to move in time for the weekend. So Friday morning, quite a cloudy start across much of the UK, 1 or 2 showers as well. Best of the sunshine will be across eastern parts of England, central, southern and eastern Scotland too. But by the afternoon, the heat and humidity here will spark a few hefty showers, some thunderstorms possible. A lot of the UK will be cloudy, there'll be a few bright or sunny spells. And then into the afternoon across Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, southwest England, a band of rain, which could be heavy at times, will move in here. And turning fresher as a result, 20 or 21 Celsius. In the east, holding on to the heat and humidity, highs of 25 or 26. Through the evening, thunderstorms move away. Then this band of rain pushes north and east across the UK. Behind it, fresher conditions following, mixture of clear skies and scattered showers. So a much more comfortable night for sleeping Friday night into Saturday morning. Towns and cities holding up in double figures, but slipping into single figures in the countryside. So a bright start to Saturday morning, but there will be a mixture of showers, some of these heavy. Showers most frequent across western areas through the day. The east holding on to the driest and brightest weather, but there will be some showers here too. Perhaps some longer spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland later on in the day. And also with this low pressure nearby, we will see increasing winds, particularly through the Irish Sea, some gales developing towards Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And a fresher feeling day for all. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, perhaps 23 to 25 across southeast England. And that remains so for the weekend. We're looking at a mixture of sunny spells and showers, some of these heavy at times, and temperatures overall around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden, resigns just hours after the Tories lose 2 by-elections.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Friday, the 24th of June. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live, of course, across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio and online. So wherever you are, whatever you're up to, you can take us out and about with you today. These are the headlines.
As we were saying there, Oliver Dowden says he shares the distress of Conservative voters over recent events.
But meanwhile, those by-election results saw a historic win for the Lib Dems in Tiverton and Honiton.
And in the second defeat of the night for the Tories, Labour reclaimed the red wall seat of Wakefield.
In other news, the policing minister has exclusively told GB News the government's on track to deliver 20,000 extra officers by March. The government says it plans to get tough on crime.
And it hasn't happened for 2 years, but today Glastonbury returns. The festival will see the likes of Paul McCartney, Diana Ross and the Pet Shop Boys down in Somerset. And our very own Stephanie Tetchy is there too.
Over 100,000 music lovers are here for the greatest show on earth. The rail strikes haven't dampened people's spirits. The poor weather hasn't dampened people's spirits because people are here to party. Finally, after 3 years, everyone is back at Worthy Farm.
How can she look so good in a field?
I don't know, we'll see. We'll ask her secret.
I'd love it if this morning she looks a bit, hair all over the place, no makeup on.
We'll join her in a few minutes and find out.
How
do you go on looking glamorous? You just how you can in a tent. That's why I say I'd like a tent with a bathroom.
GB Views at gbnews.uk if you want to get in touch with us this morning. We'd love to hear your views on whether it's Glastonbury or the election chaos that we've seen for the Conservatives. Get in touch.
Well, the big story of the morning is not one we were expecting at 6 o'clock, actually. Well, 5:30. We were expecting the result of those 2 by-elections, but then, within half an hour or so of them, Oliver Dowden resigned as co-chairman of the Conservative Party after those 2 by-election defeats. He said in a letter to Prime Minister Boris Johnson that, quotes, someone must take responsibility. So in a moment, we'll get the reaction of former Cabinet Minister David Meller.
Yeah, but first, let's have a look at those by-election results because they were crucial, seem to be crucial, as a key measure in how the government and the Prime Minister is doing. Firstly, what was actually a historic win for the Lib Dems in Tiverton and Honiton, where a dramatic swing of almost 30% from the Tories saw the Lib Dems' Richard Ford secure a majority of more than 6,000. It's a seat that has been held by the Tories for, 25 years with that particular constituency. If you take into account the different boundaries over the years, that area has been held by the Conservatives for more than 100 years.
And meanwhile, in Wakefield, Labour have reclaimed this red wall constituency with Simon Lightwood. He was elected with a majority of 4,925 on a swing of 12.7 from the Tories.
OK, first off, let's talk to Jeff Moody, who's in Tiverton and Honiton for us now, where, Jeff, certainly the Lib Dems today must be throwing one heck of a party. They have made a bit of history.
Hello, Jeff, are you there? What's the latest going on there?
Hello, I am there, yes. Yeah, sorry, just talking to voters here who seem to be absolutely delighted with what's happened. It's been quite a slow start to the morning here, but now people are getting up, they're getting about, and they're really quite jubilant. There is a real sense of change here on the streets of Tiverton, but quite whether they realise quite that change is going to spread right through to Westminster, I don't know, because it's certainly a seismic result. It's the scale of that swing that is surprising people. 30%. This has been the safest Tory seat you could possibly get. 100 years of Conservative votes here wiped out overnight. That 24,000 majority gone in a flash to be replaced by a 6,000 majority to the Liberal Democrats. There's a big victory parade planned for 11 o'clock this morning. Sir Ed Davey is now in town. That's the leader of the Lib Dems. He's going to be here with Richard Ford, Britain's newest MP. They're going to be doing a victory lap of the town at around 11 o'clock this morning. Then they're going to be talking to the press too. So hopefully we'll be catching up with them both later on. But for now, just a real sense of change here. The mood is, as you can hear, the mood is quite upbeat and jubilant here. Not so jubilant, of course, if you voted for the Tories.
Jeff, thank you. Let's head up to Wakefield. And Anna Riley, who's there for us this morning. I mean, that is meant to be, of course, traditionally one of the red wall seats, turned blue in 2019, gone back to red again.
Good morning. Yes, that is exactly what has happened. For more than 80 years, Labour were in power here. That election in 2019, Conservatives got in, but this by-election has shown that maybe Labour are back breaking through the red wall here in Wakefield. It's Simon Lightwood that's going to represent this West Yorkshire city in the Commons now. In the by-election, there was a turnout of 39.1% here in Wakefield. Conservatives came in second place. They were followed by independent Akif Akbar in third and the Yorkshire Party in fourth. There were 15 candidates going for this seat. Speaking after the result, Simon Lightwood addressed the Prime Minister. He said, "Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated. Your government has no ideas, no plan to address the big issues facing your country." And after the result was announced, Simon Lightwood said Wakefield had started the next Labour government, in his words, saying we've definitely passed the test and demonstrated that Labour is ready to rebuild the red wall. Speaking to people here in Wakefield this morning, their concerns around the cost of living and more investment into the city, and that's what they're hoping this new candidate here will bring.
No, thank you.
Well, can the Conservatives bounce back ahead of the general election? There's another 2 years to go, I suppose. With us now, former Conservative Cabinet Minister David Meller. Hello, David. Hi. I suppose that's the big question, is I suppose whether the Tories are thinking there's time to rebuild or whether Boris is thinking, I've got to go now.
Well, heaven knows what some of them are thinking. I've long since ceased to even begin to imagine what they're thinking. What they should be thinking is that it can never be glad, confident morning again with Boris. You see, I was looking back over the years of by-elections and stuff like that. And I say the first by-election I was conscious of was one in South Dorset back in 1962. It shows what a sad childhood I had. But the Prime Minister then was Harold Macmillan, Supermac, swept the Tories to victory in 1959. But by 1963, they couldn't wait to be rid of him. In other words, Super Boris can become, for heaven's sake, it's time for him to go.
Yeah, but everybody's saying that and he still doesn't go.
Yeah, but he won't go. He'll have to be dragged kicking and screaming out. It'll be, like one of those exciting historical dramas where, the incumbent king or dictator or whatever he is literally dragged and thrown on a pyre, but he will have to go.
In that sense, has Oliver Dowden grabbed him by the collar with his resignation?
Grabbed him possibly by the collar. Look, Oliver Dowden is a nice fellow, and he's a competent fellow. And his letter is a masterpiece of understatement. It speaks with dignity about the need for someone to take responsibility. It goes on about, how sad he is for the party workers, etc., etc. It doesn't say, it says he will continue to be a loyal member of the Conservative Party. It doesn't say anything about Boris. Now, that speaks volumes. So Oliver Dowden has put a match to a bonfire, how many others will throw their brands, burning brands, on the fire? The worry about the Conservative Party is that it has lost its characters, its genuine people who are capable of giving leadership. I mean, when Margaret Thatcher ultimately knew it was time to go, she consulted her cabinet, and a number of them went in to see her and said, Margaret, all very sad, but you've got to go. Now, does Boris have men and women of enough calibre to actually say that? But I tell you something, if they don't say that, I think the Tories are in real difficulties, because you cannot really see Boris building himself back. And the scale of the repudiation in Tiverton, first of all, the turnout, 52%. You know, normally by-elections, tradition is whatever the turnout was at the last general election, it's half that at the by-election. Well, obviously it wasn't 104% in Tiverton at the previous general election. People made a special point of coming out in order to throw an extra bit of fat on the fire. And the scale of the defeat, you know, they say they overturned a majority of 23,000. Didn't overturn the Lib Dems. Pretty, you know, no one's going to be excited that Ed Davey has turned up. Indeed, your people had to explain who Ed Davey was. You know, Ed Davey has failed to be leader of the Lib Dems on a number of occasions. Just he's the only one left standing, so they had to turn to him. But the point is, this is not a vote in favour of the Lib Dems. Mentioned earlier, it's worth repeating. Dear old Austin Mitchell, Labour MP for Grimsby, always said the role of the Lib Dems at by-elections was to be a bucket for the electorate to spit in. And that's what they've done here. But the scale of the spitting, the amount of spittle, it's just...
Yuck. Let's not take that metaphor any further.
No, I know, but you see, at a certain point, people have to realise that a real decision has to be taken.
Even Simon, I think it was Simon Lighthearted, the winning candidate in Wakefield, who said that in his speech, he actually said he called upon the Tory MPs who consistently support Boris to think on their conscience, because, you know, basically they're propping up somebody who shouldn't be in the job.
And he'll be frightened to death if they do, because if they do, then and a new leader emerges. It's almost like, yes, people sometimes say, well, who should be the new leader? And the answer is, God knows, but anybody will be better than Boris at the moment. The Labour Party's best hope is that Boris stays. So I think Mr Lighthearted should be careful what he wishes for.
But has he got a point, though? Because there must be so many Tory MPs who are consistently bolstering up. You know, they're churned out nearly every day to speak on programmes to try and defend things. They must be thinking themselves, do I continue to support a Prime Minister who's looking dodgy, or do I throw my hat into the ring and just take the risk and back somebody else?
And a lot of the people that turn out, you know, coin another old phrase, they're not even household names in her own front room. I mean, one of the problems, I mean, Margaret Thatcher had her issues with her colleagues, but one of the things she consistently did was appoint people to her cabinet because they could do the job. And she never refused to appoint them just because she knew when the chips were down, they weren't on her side. Boris has a cabinet where it's almost impossible to justify the presence of, I don't know, let's say, Dominic Raab as Deputy Prime Minister. What on earth has Dominic Raab ever done in his career to justify being Deputy Prime Minister? He is, but what he is loyal to Boris. Now, at a certain point, though, loyalty, which is always regarded as a great British virtue,
it lasts forever.
But loyalty is not a virtue in this situation. Look, this is a turning point in British politics, and if it isn't, the Tories are... That's the problem.
So for all those people who get in touch, and there's been lots of them this morning saying, we support Boris, we absolutely support Boris, you would say to them, what, if you want another Conservative government, you need to withdraw that support?
Look, even a man like Boris never loses all his support. But consistently, when experienced polling organisations ask the question, even of Conservative voters, should Boris go or stay, you get over 70% saying he should go. There are certain negatives where you cannot ever pull it back. I mean, every politician goes through bad moments, but this is more than a bad moment. This is the end. But, you know, I repeat myself in a rather tedious way, but I can't think of any new way of describing it. You know, in most dramas, there's a sudden death, but in opera, the death goes on for 3 or 4 arias and even a whole act. Boris is in an operatic end, but he will still come to an end. At some point, he'll try and sing and he'll be carried off the stage.
I was going to say something like, it ain't over till the fat lady sings or something, but I can't quite get that right.
Yeah.
David,
thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's just bring you up to date then with all that developing news this morning. And Boris Johnson has actually, in the last hour or so, thanked Oliver Dowden after he resigned as Tory party co-chairman following double by-election defeats.
Yes, because in an open letter to the Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden wrote this morning, yesterday's parliamentary by-elections are the latest in a run of very poor results for our party. We cannot carry on with business as usual. Somebody must take responsibility. And I have concluded that in these circumstances, it would not be right for me to remain in office. Speaking in Rwanda, Boris Johnson acknowledged Oliver Dowden's concerns.
Absolutely true that we've had some tough by-election results, and they've been, I think, a reflection of a lot of things, but we've got to recognise that voters are going through a tough time at the moment, and I think that as a government I've got to listen to what people are saying, and in particular to the difficulties people are facing over the cost of living, which is, I think, for most people the number one issue.
Flashing images here, and the Lib Dems overturned a 24,000 Tory majority to win Tiverton and Honiton. Labour reclaimed the Red Wall Wakefield seat in West Yorkshire. Labour's Simon Lightwood and the Lib Dems' Richard Ford used their speeches to call for Boris Johnson to resign.
Tonight, the people of Wakefield have spoken on behalf of the British people. They have said unreservedly, Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated.
Every day, Boris Johnson clings to office. He brings further shame, chaos and neglect.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer says the result in Wakefield shows that the Conservative Party is a spent force.
The Tory party is absolutely imploding. They know they're out of ideas and they're out of touch. And if they had any decency, they'd get out of the way for the next Labour government, because what happened here in Wakefield was people exercising their judgment on this Conservative government and voting no confidence. But for me and the Labour Party, this is very important, because for 2 years we've been turning our party around, and we were able to show the voters in Wakefield that we are a confident party, we're a united party, and that we are laser-like focused on the issues that affect working people in Wakefield. And that's why they put their faith in Simon.
Now, for the first time in nearly 40 years, health officials have identified a likely outbreak of polio in the UK.
Yeah, so far there have been no cases of polio detected directly, and experts believe the risk to the general public is very low.
But scientists have found multiple versions of the virus in sewage. Well, Dr Andrew Vallance-Owen joins us now to hopefully shed a bit of light on this. Why is this causing so much concern, Doctor, if there have been no actual cases reported?
Well, it's a long story, but at the end of the day, the findings in this runoff water from the sewage farm show live, all right, attenuated, but live polio virus, which is coming from somewhere, we don't know where, but it must be coming from people who have got polio in some way or other. It's unlikely, because of the vaccination system in this country only uses the dead virus these days, that it has come from people from abroad who may not have been vaccinated, or they may have been vaccinated with the live virus, which is also used widely in some parts of the world. So, you know, it is an illness which can spread through water. It's what we call an enterovirus. It's through eating it or drinking it that you get the illness. And so it's really important finding that it's out there. And it reminds us, because we have been reminded, that actually our vaccination program for polio isn't quite where it ought to be. There's quite a lot of young people who have not yet, 50% in some parts of the country, who have not yet had their booster vaccinations. And, you know, it's a big reminder to us that we need to get our children vaccinated properly as soon as possible.
We've already had some viewers getting in touch saying the fact that it's been found in sewage and the fact that we know that some sewage gets into the sea, is it a danger? That just that alone, is that a danger to us?
No, I think that the amount of virus particles found in the sewage is very, very small, very dilute. It's only because the public health people test it carefully, all this type of runoff water for exactly this sort of thing that it's been found. It's very, very dilute. The risk, as you said earlier on, is extremely low at the moment. And once you run even into the rivers and into the sea, it's even more dilute. But the risk is that it's there for the first time, really. Last time we had an actual case, I think, was 1984. And it reminds us how important vaccination is. Before the polio vaccine first came in 1955, millions and millions of people around the world, children particularly, were dying with polio or becoming paralyzed with polio. We sort of forget what it was like before vaccination. My mother herself just missed on the vaccination program and caught polio in 1957 and was paralyzed for the rest of her life. That is not happening now, and we don't want to be going back to those days.
We certainly don't. Doctor, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. More to come, including we're going to catch up with Stephanie. She's in Glastonbury.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
we're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Do you know what I heard the other day?
No.
If you want to be on trend, absolutely on trend, the big thing is leopard print.
Ah, is that right?
Apparently so. Who do you know that's on trend?
Oh, I know somebody who's on trend. Not only is she in Glastonbury, but she's really on trend with the old leopard print. Shall we see what she's doing? Stephanie Tetchy is in Glastonbury. Morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, Anne and Stephen. Yes, I am bang on trend. It's leopard print everything for Glastonbury because it is back with the raw.
Fabulous. Look, how have you been getting on, and what have you seen so far that's piqued your interest?
Well, at the moment, it still feels like the festival is just still setting up because today is actually going to be the first day of live music. But due to the rail strikes, people came earlier. People have been here since like Wednesday, even before the doors opened. People were camping outside ready to get in because people weren't sure if they were A, going to make it to Glastonbury, and B, how would they make it to Glastonbury? And I was speaking to so many people, and so many people had to take coach like I did. I took a 4-hour journey from London, and then other people people were cab sharing. But it's all worth it for Glastonbury because it's been 3 years since this festival has been away, and it's dubbed as the greatest show on earth. And it really does feel like that, Stephen and Anne, when you're here. It's not just about the performances, but it's just the feeling of unity, especially after the pandemic. People are just so happy. I don't think I've been around so many people in this long. It's actually quite scary. Like last night when I was walking around, I was like, there's about 200,000 people here, and it feels nice to have a big event like this back again.
You're obviously speaking from Tent City at the moment, with your leopard skin tent behind you. I mean, how did you get a leopard skin tent to start with? Did you have to pitch it yourself? And how do you remember where it is?
Oh my gosh, Anne. So I got this tent 3 years ago when I came to Glastonbury the last time. And obviously I like to do things in style. So when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that is for me. But the last time I came here, I had two 11-year-old twins, Holly and Sam, who are back here again, who helped me put it up. But yesterday I actually learned to put my tent up for the first time. So I'm quite proud of myself. And it's been quite hilarious because you become all friends in Tent City. And it's been amazing seeing people trying to set up their tent in the middle of the night. Luckily, I came during the day, which was pretty good. But it's nice and cozy. You literally become good friends with your tent neighbours.
And look, in terms of age range, I mean, not only in the revellers there, but on the stages, Billie Eilish is what the youngest to do the pyramid stage, Paul McCartney the oldest. I mean, it's a bit of something for everybody.
Well, that's what I've loved about Glastonbury, because I think a lot of people think it's just for young people. I've seen people from 3 years old to up to 80. There's a woman who's 80 years old, and this is her first Glastonbury. And there is something for everybody. When you go into the crowd, you're not just seeing teen boppers, you're seeing old people who are remembering classics, and you're seeing young people being introduced to older music. I think Glastonbury's for everybody. And, you know, before Lenny Henry he made a comment where he said, oh, not many black people, ethnic people come to Glastonbury, and actually I thought that's the opposite. I've seen lots of ethnic people. I just think Glastonbury is for everybody. It literally feels like heaven on earth sometimes.
I'm going to ask you slightly to lean to your left so we can have a proper look at that tent behind you. There you are. No, and a bit more, and a bit more. Oh, look at it there. And have you got, is it just a sleeping bag in there, or have you got some mod cons?
Oh my gosh, and you know, I've got a suitcase in there full of all my clothing, my heels, my boots, my wellies, ditching the heels for the wellies, and I don't have a torchlight, so I've just been using my phone, but it's good enough for someone like me. But you know what, Anne? The celebrities are actually staying in a new tent house suite that Glastonbury have introduced. For the whole festival, you pay £24,000 and you get to stay in this tent house suite, which has got 5 rooms, your own concierge, and a luxury which we all don't have at the moment, a toilet that flushes.
Yes.
Oh,
so
now that sounds nice, but I wouldn't pay 24 grand
it's
for it.
It's rather a lot.
Loving it. Stephanie, thank you. We'll catch up with you tomorrow. I hope. Have fun.
Fabulous. Thank you, guys. See you soon.
I love that tent.
Fabulous, isn't it? Look, don't go anywhere. That's it from us. We're back tomorrow morning at 6. Tom Harwood's up next with the briefing, live from Downing Street.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. It's going to start to turn more unsettled over the next 24 hours or so. There will be some sunshine but some hefty showers too, and it will start to turn fresher, particularly in the west. And the reason for this is low pressure is going to start dominating our weather pattern. Blustery showers, fresher conditions starting to move in time for the weekend. So Friday morning, quite a cloudy start across much of the UK, 1 or 2 showers as well. Best of the sunshine will be across eastern parts of England, central, southern and eastern Scotland too. But by the afternoon, the heat and humidity here will spark a few hefty showers, some thunderstorms possible. A lot of the UK will be cloudy, there'll be a few bright or sunny spells, and then